The Sayings of Confucius, Book 1:1. The master said, to learn and then do, is not that a pleasure? When friends come from afar, do we not rejoice? To live unknown and not fret, is not that to be a gentleman? 2. Yutsu 2 said, few men that are good sons and good brothers are fond of withstanding those over them. A man that is not fond of withstanding those over him, and is yet fond of broils, is nowhere found. A gentleman heeds the roots. When the root has taken, the way is born. And to be a good son and a good brother is not that the root of love. Footnote 2. A disciple. 3. The master said, smooth words and fawning looks are seldom found with love. 4. Tsengtsu. 3. Said, thrice daily I ask myself, in dealing for others have I been unfaithful, have I been untrue to friends, do I practice what I preach? Footnote 3. A disciple. 5. The master said, to guide a land of 1,000 chariots, honor business and be true, spend little and love men, time thy calls on the people. 6. The master said, the young should be dutiful at home, modest abroad, careful and true, overflowing in kindness for all, but in brotherhood with love. And if they have strength to spare, they should spend it on the arts. 7. Tsuetsha. 3. Said, if a man eschews beauty and honors worth, if he serves his father and mother with all his strength, if he is ready to give his life for his Lord and keeps faith with his friends, though others may say he has no learning, I must call him learned. 8. The master said, a gentleman will not be looked up to unless he is staid, nor will his learning be sound. Put faithfulness and truth first, have no friends unlike thyself, be not ashamed to mend thy faults. 9. Tsengtsu. 4. Said, heed the dead, follow up the past, and the soul of the people will again grow great. Footnote 4. A disciple. 10. Tsu Siechin. 5. Said to Tsu Kung. 6. When he comes to a country, the master always hears how it is governed. Does he ask, or is it told him? Footnote 5. A disciple. Footnote 6. A disciple. Tsu Kung said, the master gets it by his warmth and honesty, by politeness, modesty, and yielding. The way the master asks is unlike other men's asking. 11. The master said, whilst thy father lives, look for his purpose. When he is gone, look how he walked. To change nothing in thy father's ways for 3 years may be called pious. 12. Yutsu. 7. Said, to behave with ease is the best part of courtesy. This was the beauty of the old king's ways, this they followed in small and great. But knowing this, it will not do to give way to ease unchecked by courtesy. This too is wrong. Footnote 7. A disciple. 13. Yutsu said, if pledges are close to right, word can be kept. If attentions are close to courtesy, shame will be kept far. If we do not choose our leaders wrong, we may worship them too. 14. The master said, a gentleman that does not seek to eat his fill, nor look for ease in his home, who is earnest at work and careful of speech, who walks with those that keep the way and is guided by them, may be said to love learning. 15. Tsu Kung. 8. Said, poor but no flatterer, rich but not proud, how would that be? Footnote 8. A disciple. It would do, said the master, but better still were poor but merry, rich but loving courtesy. Tsu Kung said, when the poem says, if ye cut, if ye file, if ye polish and grind, is that what is meant? The master said, now I can begin to talk of poetry to Tzu. Tell him what is gone, and he knows what shall come. 16. The master said, not to be known is no sorrow. My sorrow is not knowing men. Book 2:1. The master said, he that rules by mind is like the North Star, steady in his seat, whilst the stars all bend to him. 2. The master said, the 300 poems are summed up in the one line, think no evil. 3. The master said, guide the people by law, align them by punishment. They may shun crime, but they will want shame. Guide them by mind, align them by courtesy. They will learn shame and grow good. For the master said, at 15 I had the will to learn, at 30 I could stand, at 40 I had no doubts, at 50 I understood the heavenly bidding, at 60 my ears were opened. 9. At 70 I could do as my heart lusted without trespassing from the square. Footnote 9 lit. Obedient. 5. Mengyi asked the duty of a son. The master said not to transgress. As Fan Chi, 10, was driving him, the master said, Meng son, 11, ask me the duty of a son. I answered not to transgress. Footnote 10 a disciple. Footnote 11 Mengyi, what did ye mean? Said Fan Chi. To serve our father and mother with courtesy whilst they live, to bury them with courtesy when they die, and to worship them with courtesy. 6. Meng Wu asked the duty of a son. The master said he should not grieve his father and mother by anything but illness. 7. Tsu Yu, 12, asked the duty of a son. Footnote 12, a disciple. The master said, he that can feed his parents is now called a good son. But both dogs and horses are fed, and unless we honor our parents, what is the difference? 8. Tsuetsha, 13, asked the duty of a son. Footnote 13 a disciple. The master said, our manner is the hard part. For the young to be a stay in toil and leave the wine and food to their elders, is this to fulfill their duty? 9. The master said, if I talk all day to Hui. 14. Like a dullard, he never differs from me. But when he is gone, if I watch him when alone, he can carry out what I taught. No, Hui is no dullard. Footnote 14 the disciple Yen Yuan. 10. The master said, see what he does, watch what moves him, search what pleases him. Can the man lie hidden? Can the man lie hidden? 11. The master said, to keep old knowledge warm and get new makes the teacher. 12. The master said, a gentleman is not a vessel. 13. Tsu Kung, 15, asked, what is a gentleman? Footnote 15 a disciple. The master said he puts words into deeds first and follows these up with words. 14. The master said, a gentleman is broad and fair, the small man takes sides and is narrow. 15. The master said, learning without thought is naught, thought without learning is dangerous. 16. The master said, to fight strange doctrines does harm. 17. The master said, you, 16, shall I teach thee what is wisdom? To know what we know and know what we do not know is wisdom. Footnote 16 the disciple Tsulu. 18. Tsu Chang, 17, learned with an eye to pay. Footnote 17 a disciple. The master said, hear much, leave all that is doubtful alone, speak warily of everything else, and few will be offended. See much, leave all that is dangerous alone, deal warily with everything else, and thou wilt have little to rue. If thy words seldom give offense, and thy deeds leave little to rue, pay will follow. 19. Duke Ai, 18, asked, what should I do to win the people? Footnote 18 of Lu. Confucius answered, lift up the straight, put away the crooked, and the people will be one. Lift up the crooked, put away the straight, and the people will not be one. 20. Kai Kayang, 19, asked how to make the people lowly, faithful, and painstaking. Footnote 19 the head of the Kai clan. The master said, meet them with dignity, they will be lowly. Be a good son and merciful, they will be faithful. Lift up the good and teach the unskilled, and they will take pains. 21. One said to Confucius, why do we not govern, sir? The master said, what does the book, 20, say of a good son? To be a good son and a friend to thy brothers is to show how to govern. This, too, is to govern. Must one be in office to govern? Footnote 20, the Book of History. 22. The master said, a man without truth, I know not what good he is. A cart without a crosspole, a carriage without a yoke, how can they be moved? 23. Tzu Chang, 21, asked whether we can know what is to be 10 generations hence. Footnote 21. A disciple. The master said the yin, 22, took over the manners of the Aisha. The harm and the good that they did them can be known. The Chu took over the manners of the yin. The harm and the good that they did them can be known. And we may know what shall be, even 100 generations hence, whoever follows Chu. Footnote 22. Up to the time of Confucius, China had been ruled by 3 lines of kings. First the Tiang, next the Yin or Shang, then the Chu. 24. The master said to worship the ghosts of men not akin to us is fawning. To see the right and not do it is one of courage. Book 3:1. Of the Kai having 8 rows of dancers. 23. In his courtyard Confucius said, if this is to be born, what is not to be born? Footnote 23. An imperial prerogative. 2. When the sacrifice was ended, the 3 clans had the young hymn sung. The master said, princes and dukes assist. Solemn is the son of heaven. What meaning has this in the courtyard of the 3 clans? 3. The master said, a man without love, what is courtesy to him? A man without love, what is music to him? 4. Lin Fang asked what good form is at root. The master said, a big question. At high tides, thrift is better than waste. At burials, grief is worth more than nicety. 5. The master said, every wild tribe has its lord, whereas the lands of Asia, 24, have none. Footnote 24. China. 6. The Kai sacrifice to Mount Ti, 25. Footnote 25. A prerogative of the Duke of Lu. The master said to Jan Yu, 26, canst thou not stop this? Footnote 26. A disciple in the service of the Kai. He answered, I cannot. Alas, said the master, dost thou think Mount Ti less wise than Lin Fang? 7. The master said, a gentleman never strives with others, or must he perhaps in shooting? But then, as he bows and makes way in going up or steps down to drink. 27. His strife is that of a gentleman. Footnote 27. The loser had to drink a cup of wine. 8. Tsuecha asked, what is the meaning of her cunning smiles, her dimples light, her lovely eyes so clear and bright, all unadorned, the background white? Coloring, said the master, is second to the plain ground. Then good form is second, said Tsuecha. Shang, 28. Said the master, thou hast hit my meaning. Now I can talk of poetry to thee. Footnote 28. Tsuecha. 9. The master said, I can speak of the manners of Aisha, but as proof of them Kai. 29. Is not enough. I can speak of the manners of Yin, but as proof of them sung is not enough. This is due to their dearth of books and great men. If there were enough of these, I could use them as proofs. Footnote 29. Kai was the homeland of the house of Aisha, sung that of the house of Yin. 10. The master said, after the drink offering at the great sacrifice, I have no wish to see more. 11. One asked the meaning of the great sacrifice. The master said, I do not know. He that knew the meaning would overlook all below heaven as I do this, and he pointed to his palm. 12. He worshipped as if those whom he worshipped were before him. He worshipped the spirits as if they were before him. The master said, for me, to take no part in the sacrifice is the same as not sacrificing. 13. Wang Sun Chia, 30, said, what is the meaning of, it is better to court the hearth god than the god of the home? Footnote 30. Wang Sun Chia was minister of Wei and had more influence than his master. The hearth god ranks below the god of the home, the Roman Lares, but since he sees all that goes on in the house and ascends to heaven at the end of the year to report what has happened, it is well to be on good terms with him. Not so, said the master. A sin against heaven leaves no room for prayer. 14. The master said, Chu. 31. Looks back on 2 lines of kings. How rich it is in art, I follow Chu. Footnote 31. The royal house of Chu, which was then ruling China. 15. On going into the great temple, the master asked about everything. One said, who says that the Tzu man's son knows the rites. On going into the great temple, he asked about everything. When he heard this, the master said, such is the right. 16. The master said, in shooting, the arrow need not go right through the target, for men are not the same in strength. This was the old rule. 17. Tzu Kung wished to do away with the sheep offering at the new moon. The master said, thou lovest the sheep, Tzu, I love the right. 18. The master said, serve the king with all courtesy, men call it fawning. 19. Duke Ting asked how a lord should treat his lieges and how lieges should serve their lord. Confucius answered, the lord should treat his lieges with courtesy, lieges should serve their lord faithfully. 20. The master said, the poem The Osprey is glad but not wanton, it is sad but not morbid. 21. Duke Ai asked Sai Wo about the earth altars. Sai Wo answered, the emperors of the house of Asia grew firs round them, the men of Yin grew cypress, the men of Chu grew chestnut, which was to say, let the people tremble. 32. Footnote 32. Tremble and chestnut have the same sound in Chinese. On hearing this, the master said, I do not speak of what is ended, chide what is settled, or find fault with what is past. 33. Footnote 33. In old times men had been sacrificed at the earth altars, and Sai Wo's answer might seem to approve the practice. 22. The master said, how shallow was Quan Chung, but said one was not Quan Chung thrifty. The Quan, said the master, owned San Kui, and no one of his household held 2 posts. Was that thrift? At least Quan Chung knew good form. The master said, kings screen their gates with trees. The Quan, too, had trees to screen his gate. When 2 kings are carousing, they have a stand for the turned-down cups. The Quan had a turned-down cup stand, too. If the Quan knew good form, who does not know good form? 34. Footnote 34. Quan Chung, plus 645 BC. A famous man in his day, was chief minister to the Duke of Che, whom he raised to such wealth and power that he became the leading prince of the empire. His chief merit lay in taming the barbarous frontier tribes. The rest of his work was built upon sand and died with him. 23. The master said to the great master. 35. Of Lu we can learn how to play music, at first each part in unison, then a swell of harmony, each part distinct, rolling on to the finish. Footnote 35. Of music. 24. The warden of Yi asked to see Confucius, saying, no gentleman has ever come here whom I have failed to see. The followers took him in. On leaving he said, my 2-3 boys, why lament your fall? The way has long been lost below heaven. Now heaven shall make the master into a warning bell. 25. The master said of the music of Shao, it is thoroughly beautiful and thoroughly good, too. Of the music of Wu, he said, it is thoroughly beautiful but not thoroughly good. 26. The master said, rank without beauty, ceremony without reverence, mourning without grief, why should I cast them a glance? Book 4:1. The master said, love makes a spot beautiful. Who chooses not to dwell in love, has he got wisdom? 2. The master said, loveless men cannot bear need long, they cannot bear fortune long. Loving men find peace in love, the wise find profit in it. 3. The master said, love alone can love others or hate others. For the master said, a will set on love is free from evil. 5. The master said, wealth and honors are what men desire, but do not go from the way to keep them. Lowliness and want are hated by men, but do not go from the way to escape them. Shorn of love is a gentleman worthy of the name. Not for one moment may a gentleman sin against love. He must not do so in flurry and haste, nor do so in utter overthrow. 6. The Master said, I have seen no one that loves love and hates uncharity. He that loves love will set nothing higher. The hater of uncharity is so given to love that no uncharity can enter into his life. If a man were to give his strength to love for one day, I have seen no one whose strength would fail him. There may be such men, but I have not seen one. 7. The Master said, a man and his faults are of a piece. By watching his faults we learn whether love be his. 8. The Master said, to learn the way at daybreak and die at eve were enough. 9. The Master said, a night. 36. In quest of the way, who is ashamed of bad clothes and bad food, it is idle talking to. Footnote 36. A gentleman entitled to bear arms, not a knight in armor. 10. The Master said, a gentleman has no likes or dislikes below heaven. He follows right. 11. The Master said, the gentleman cherishes mind, the small man cherishes dirt. Gentlemen trust in the law, the small man trusts in favor. 12. The Master said, the chase of gain is rich in hate. 13. The Master said, what is it to sway a kingdom by courteous yielding? If we cannot sway a kingdom by courteous yielding, what is our courtesy worth? 14. The Master said, care not for want of place, care for thy readiness to fill one. Care not for being unknown, but seek to be worthy of note. 15. The Master said, one line Shen. 37. Runs through my way. Footnote 37. The disciple Tsengtsu. Yes, said Tsengtsu. After the Master had left, the disciples asked what was meant. Tsengtsu said, the Master's way is no more than faithfulness and fellow feeling. 16. The Master said, the gentleman is learned in right, the small man is learned in gain. 17. The Master said, at sight of worth think to grow like it, at sight of baseness search thyself within. 18. The Master said, a father or a mother may be gently chidden. If thou seest they have no will to follow thee, be the more lowly, but do not give way, nor murmur at the trouble they give thee. 19. The Master said, whilst thy father and mother are living, do not wander afar. If thou must travel, hold a set course. 20. The Master said, he that changes nothing in his father's ways for 3 years may be called pious. 21. The Master said, a father and mother's years must be borne in mind, with gladness on the one hand and fear on the other. 22. The Master said, the men of old were loth to speak, for not to live up to their words would have shamed them. 23. The Master said, we shall seldom get lost if we hold to main lines. 24. The Master said, a gentleman wishes to be slow to speak and quick to do. 25. The Master said, a great soul is never friendless, he has always neighbors. 26. Tsuyu said, nagging at kings brings disgrace, nagging at friends estrangement. Book 5:1. Of Konya Ca Chang the Master said, a girl might be wedded to him. Though he has been in fetters, that was not his crime. He gave him his daughter to wed of Nan Yung the Master said, when the land keeps the way he will not be neglected, and if the land loses the way he will escape punishment and death. He gave him his brother's daughter to wed too. Of Tsu Chin. 38. The Master said, what a gentleman he is. But if there were no gentleman in Lu, where could he have picked it up? 3. Tsu Kung asked, and what of me? Thou art a vessel, said the Master. What kind of vessel? A rich temple vessel. For one said, young, 39, has love, but he is not glib. Footnote 38. A disciple born in Lu. Footnote 39. The disciple Chung Kung. The Master said, what is the good of being glib? Fighting men with tonguecraft mostly makes men hate you. Whether love be his I do not know, but what is the good of being glib? 5. The master moved Chetoroki to take office. He answered, for this I want confidence. The master was pleased. 6. The master said, forsaken is the way. I must take ship and stem the seas, and you, 40, shall go with me. When Tsulu heard this, he was glad. The master said, you loves daring more than I do, but he is at a loss how to take things. 7. Mengwu asked whether Tsulu had love. I do not know, said the master. He asked again. A land of 1,000 chariots might give you charge of its levies, but whether love be his I do not know. And how about Chu? 41. A town of 1,000 households, a clan of 100 chariots might make Chu governor, but whether love be his I do not know. And how about Chu? 42. Standing in the court, girt with his sash, Chu might entertain the guests, but whether love be his I do not know. 8. The master said to Tsukung, which is the better man, thou or Hui? 43. He answered, how dare I look as high as Hui? When Hui hears one thing, he understands 10. When I hear one thing, I understand 2. The master said, thou art not his like. Neither art thou his like, nor am I 9. Tsai Yu, 44, slept in the daytime. Footnote 40, Tsulu. Footnote 41, the disciple Jan Yu. Footnote 42, the disciple Kung Hsi Hua. Footnote 43, the disciple Yen Yuan. Footnote 44, the disciple Tsai Wo. The master said, rotten wood cannot be carved, nor are dung walls plastered. Why chide with you? The master said, when I first met men I listened to their words and took their deeds on trust. When I meet them now, I listen to their words and watch their deeds. I righted this on you. 10. The master said, I have met no firm man. One answered, Shen Chang. The master said, Chang is passionate. How can he be firm? 11. Tsukung said, what I do not wish done to me, I likewise wish not to do to others. The master said, that is still beyond thee, Tzu. 12. Tsukung said, to hear the master on his art and precepts is granted us, but to hear him on man's nature and the way of heaven is not. 13. Until Tsulu could do what he had heard, his only fear was to hear more. 14. Tsukung asked why was K. Ungwen called cultured. The master said he was quick and loved learning. He was not ashamed to ask those beneath him. That is why he was called cultured. 15. The master said of the ways of a gentleman Tsu Chan had 4. His life was modest. He honored those that he served. He was kind in feeding the people, and he was just in his calls upon them. 16. The master said Yen Ping was a good friend. The longer he knew you, the more attentive he grew. 17. The master said Sang Wen lodged his tortoise with hills on the pillars and reeds on the uprights. Was this his wisdom? 18. Tsu Chang said, the chief minister Tsu Wen was thrice made minister without showing gladness. Thrice he left office with unmoved looks. He always told the new ministers how the old ones had governed. How was that? He was faithful, said the master. But was it love? I do not know, said the master. How should this amount to love? When Tsui murdered the lord of Chen Wen threw up 10 teams of horses and left the land. On coming to another kingdom, he said, like my lord Tsui, and left it. On coming to a second kingdom, he said again, like my lord Tsui, and left it. How was that? He was clean, said the master. But was it love? I do not know, said the master. How should this amount to love? 19. Kai Wen thought thrice before acting. On hearing this, the master said, twice is enough. 20. The master said, whilst the land kept the way Ning Wu showed wisdom. When his land lost the way, he grew simple. His wisdom we may come up to, such simplicity is beyond us. 45. Footnote 45. Ning Wu was minister of the Duke of Wei in the middle of the 7th century B.C. The duke was driven from his throne and deserted by the wise and prudent. But Ning Wu, in his simplicity, stuck to his master and finally effected his restoration. 21. When he was in Ch'en, the master said, "Home, I must go home. Zealous or rash or finished scholars, my young sons at home do not know what pruning they still need." 22. The master said, because Poyi and Shusiachi never remembered old wickedness, they made few enemies. 46. 23. The master said, who can call Wei Shengkao straight? A man begged him for vinegar. He begged it of a neighbor and gave it. 24. The master said, smooth words, fawning looks, and overdone humility, so Chiuming thought shameful, and so do I. He thought it shameful to hide ill will and ape friendship, and so do I. 25. As Yen Yuan and Kailu, 47, were sitting with him, the master said, why not each of you tell me thy wishes? Footnote 46. Poyi and Shusiachi were sons of the king of Kuchu. Their father left the throne to the younger of the two, but he would not supplant the elder, nor would the elder go against his father's wishes. So they both retired into obscurity. When King Wu overthrew the tyrant Chu, 1122 BC, they starved to death rather than live under a new dynasty. Of Poyi Mencius tells us Book X, Chapter 1. His eyes would not look on an evil face, his ears would not listen to an evil sound. He served none but his own lord, he ruled none but his own people. He came in when there was order and withdrew when tumults came. Where lawless rule showed or lawless people stayed, he could not bear to dwell. To be together with country folk he thought like sitting in court dress and court cap on dust and ashes. In Chu's time he dwelt by the North Sea shore, waiting for all below heaven to grow clean. So, hearing the ways of Poyi, the fool grows honest and the weakling's purpose stands. Footnote 47. Tsulu. Tsulu said, I should like carriages and horses and clothes of light fur to share with my friends, and if they spoiled them, not to get angry. Yen Yuan said, I should like to make no boast of talent or show or merit. Tsulu said, we should like to hear your wishes, sir. The master said, to give the old folk peace, to be true to friends, and to have a heart for the young. 26. The master said, it is finished. I have met no one that can see his own faults and arraign himself within. 27. The master said, in a hamlet of 10 houses there must be men that are as faithful and true men as I, but they do not love learning as I do. Book 6 1. The master said, young, 48, might fill the seat of a prince, and might Su Sang Po Tsu? Asked Chung Kung. Yes, said the master, but he is slack. To be stern to himself, said Chung Kung, and slack in his claims on the people might do, but to be slack himself and slack with others must surely be too slack. The master said, what Young says is true. Tu Duke Ai asked which disciples loved learning. Confucius answered, Yen Hui, 49, loved learning. He did not carry over anger, he made no mistake twice. Alas, his mission was short, he died. Now that he is gone, I hear of no one that loves learning. 3. When Tsu Hua, 50, was sent to Chiachi, the disciple Jan asked for grain for his mother. The master said, give her 6 pecks. He asked for more. The master said, give her 16. Jan gave her 800. The master said, on his way to Chiachi, 51, was drawn by sleek horses and clad in light furs. I have heard that gentlemen help the needy, not that they swell riches. Footnote 48, the disciple Chung Kung. Footnote 49, the disciple Yen Yuan. Footnote 50. The disciple Kung Hsi Hua or Kung Hsi Cha. Footnote 51. Kung Hai Cha. When Yuan Ssu was made governor, he was given 900 measures of grain, which he refused. Not so, said the master. Why not take it and give it to thy neighbors and countryfolk? 4. The master said of Chung Kung, if the calf of a brindled cow be red and horned, though men be shy to offer him, will the hills and streams reject him? 5. The master said, for 3 months together hui's. 52. Heart never sinned against love. The others may hold out for a day or a month, but no more. 6. Kai Kayang, 53, asked whether Chung Yu, 3, was fit to govern. The master said, Yu, 54, is firm, what would governing be to him? And his Tzu, 55, fit to govern. Tzu is thorough, what would governing be to him? And his Chu, 56, fit to govern. Chin is clever, what would governing be to him? 7. The Kai sent to make Min Tsu Chin. 6. Governor of Pai. Min Tsu Chin said, make some good excuse for me. If he sends again, I must be across the Wen 8. When Po Niu, 57, was ill, the master asked after him. Grasping his hand through the window, he said, he is going. It is the bidding, but why this man of such an illness? Why this man of such an illness? Footnote 52. Yen Yuan. Footnote 53. The head of the Kai clan after Kai Huan. Footnote 54. The disciple Tsu Lu. Footnote 55. The disciple Tsu Kung. Footnote 56. The disciple Jan Yu. Footnote 57. A disciple. 9. The master said, what a man was Hui. 58. A bowl of rice, a gourd of water in a low alley, man cannot bear such misery, yet Hui never fell from mirth. What a man he was. 10. Jan Chu. 59. Said, it is not that I take no pleasure in the master's way, I want strength. Footnote 58. Yen Yuan. Footnote 59. Jan Yu. The master said, he that wants strength faints midway, but thou drawst a line. 11. The master said to Tsu Cha, study to be a gentleman, not as the small man studies. 12. When Tsu Yu was governor of Wu Siecheng, the master said, hast thou gotten any men? He answered, I have Tan Ti Mi Ming. He will not take a short cut when walking, and he has never come to my house except on business. 13. The master said, Meng Chifan never brags. He was covering the rear in a rout, but on coming to the gate he whipped his horse and cried, not courage kept me behind, my horse won't go. 14. The master said, unless we are glib as the reader To and fair as Ko of Sung, escape is hard in the times that be. 15. The master said, who can go out except by the door? Why is it no one keeps to the way? 16. The master said, matter outweighing art begets roughness, art outweighing matter begets pedantry. Matter and art well blent make a gentleman. 17. The master said, man is born straight. If he grows crooked and yet lives, he is lucky to escape. 18. The master said, he that knows is below him that loves, and he that loves below him that delights therein. 19. The master said, to men above the common we can talk of higher things. To men below the common we must not talk of higher things. 20. Fan Ch. 60. Asked, what is wisdom? The master said, to foster right among the people, to honor ghosts and spirits, and yet keep aloof from them may be called wisdom. He asked, what is love? The master said, to rank the effort above the prize may be called love. 21. The master said, wisdom delights in water, love delights in hills. Wisdom is stirring, love is quiet. Wisdom is merry, love grows old. 22. The master said, by one revolution Che might grow to be Lu, by one revolution Lu might reach the way. 23. The master said, a drinking horn that is no horn. What a horn, what a drinking horn. 24. Tsai Wo, 61. Said if a man of love were told that a man is in a well, would he go in after him? Footnote 60. A disciple. Footnote 61. A disciple. The master said, why should he? A gentleman might be got to the well but not trapped into it, he may be cheated but not fooled. 25. The master said, by breadth of reading and the ties of courtesy, a gentleman is kept, too, from false paths. 26. The master saw Nantsu. 62. Tsulu was displeased. The master took an oath, saying, if I have done wrong, may heaven forsake me, may heaven forsake me. 27. The master said, the highest minds cleave to the center, the common. They have long been rare among the people. 28. Tsukung said, to treat the people with bounty and help the many, how were that? Could it be called love? The master said, what has this to do with love? Must it not be holiness? Yao and Shun. 63. Still yearned for this. Seeking a foothold for self, love finds a foothold for others. Seeking light for itself, it enlightens others too. To learn from the near at hand may be called the clue to love. Footnote 62. The dissolute wife of Duke Ling of Wei. Footnote 63. Two emperors of the Golden Age. Book 7:1. The master said, a teller and not a maker, one that trusts and loves the past, I might liken myself to our old Piang. 64. 2. The master said, to think things over in silence, to learn and be always hungry, to teach and never weary. Is any of these mine? 3. The master said, not making the most of my mind, want of thoroughness in learning, failure to do the right when told it, lack of strength to overcome faults, these are my sorrows. 4. In his free moments the master was easy and cheerful. 5. The master said, how deep is my decay? It is long since I saw the Duke of Chu. 65. In a dream. 6. The master said, keep thy will on the way, lean on mind, rest in love, move in art. 7. The master said, from the man that paid in dried meat upwards, I have withheld teaching from no one. 8. The master said, only to those fumbling do I open, only for those stammering do I find the word. Footnote 64. We should be glad to know more of old Piang, but nothing is known of him. Footnote 65. Died 1105 BC. He was the younger brother of King Wu, the founder of the Chu dynasty, as great in peace as the king in war. He was so bent on carrying out the old principles of government that, if anything did not tally with them, he looked up and thought, till day passed into night, and if by luck he found the answer, he sat and waited for the dawn. Mencius, Book VIII, Chapter 20. If I lift one corner and the other 3 are left unturned, I say no more. 9. When eating beside a mourner, the master never ate his fill. On days when he had been wailing, he did not sing. 10. The master said to Yen Yuan to go forward when in office and lie quiet when not. Only I and thou can do that. Tsulu said, if ye had to lead 3 armies, sir, whom would ye have with you? No man, said the master, that would face a tiger bare-fisted or plunge into a river and die without a qualm, but one indeed who, fearing what may come, lays his plans well and carries them through. 11. The master said, if shouldering a whip were a sure road to riches, I should turn carter, but since there is no sure road, I tread the path I love. 12. The master gave heed to abstinence, war, and sickness. 13. When he was in Che for 3 months after hearing the Shao played, the master knew not the taste of flesh. I did not suppose, he said, that music could reach such heights. 14. Jan Yu said, is the master for the Lord of Wei. 66. Footnote 66. The grandson of Duke Ling, the husband of Nantsu. His father had been driven from the country for plotting to kill Nantsu. When Duke Ling died, he was succeeded by his grandson, who opposed by force his father's attempts to seize the throne. "I shall ask him," said Tsu Kung. He went in and said, "What kind of men were Poye?" 67. And Shu Chie. "Worthy men of yore," said the master. "Did they rue the past? They sought love and found it. What had they to rue?" Tsu Kung went out and said, "The master is not for him." 15. The master said, "Eating coarse rice and drinking water with bent arm for pillow, we may be merry, but ill-gotten wealth and honors are to me a wandering cloud." 16. The master said, "Given a few more years, making 50 for learning the Yi." 68. I might be freed from gross faults. Footnote 67, see Book V, Section 22. Footnote 68, an abstruse ancient classic usually called the Book of Changes. 17. The master liked to talk of poetry, history, and the upkeep of courtesy. Of all these he liked to talk. 18. The Duke of Shi asked Tsu Lu about Confucius. Tsu Lu did not answer. The master said, "Why didst thou not say, 'He is a man that forgets to eat in his eagerness, whose sorrows are forgotten in gladness, who knows not that age draws near'?" 19. The master said, "I was not born to wisdom. I loved the past and sought it earnestly there." 20. The master never talked of goblins, strength, disorder, or spirits. 21. The master said, "Walking three together I am sure of teachers. I pick out the good and follow it, I see the bad and shun it." 22. The master said, "Heaven begat the mind in me, what can Huntue?" 69. Do to me? 23. The master said, "My 2-3 boys, do ye think I hide things? I hide nothing from you. I am a man that keeps none of his doings from his 2-3 boys." 24. The master taught 4 things: art, conduct, faithfulness, and truth. 25. The master said, "A holy man I shall not live to see, enough could I find a gentleman. A good man I shall not live to see, enough could I find a steadfast one. But when nothing poses as something, cloud as substance, and want as riches, it is hard indeed to be steadfast." 26. The master angled, but he did not fish with a net. He shot, but not at birds sitting. 27. The master said, "There may be men that do things without knowing why. I do not. To hear much, pick out the good and follow it. To see much and think it over, this comes next to wisdom." 28. To talk to the Hu village was hard. When a lad was seen by the master, the disciples doubted. The master said, "I allow his coming, not what he does later. Why be so harsh? If a man cleans himself to come in, I admit his cleanness, but do not warrant his past." Footnote 69. In 495 BC, during Confucius's wanderings, Huntue sent a band of men to kill him, but why he did so is not known. 29. The master said, "Is love so far a thing? I long for love, and lo, love is come." 30. A judge of Chn asked whether Duke Ko. 70. Knew good form. Confucius answered he knew good form. After Confucius had left, the judge beckoned Wuma Ch. 71. To him and said, "I had heard that gentlemen are of no party, but do they too take sides?" This lord married a Wu whose name was the same as his and called her Miss Tsu of Wu. If he knew good form, who does not know good form? When Wuma Ch told the master this, he said, "How lucky I am. If I go wrong, men are sure to know it." 31. When anyone sang to the master and sang well, he made him sing it again and joined in. 32. The master said, "I have no more reading than others. To live as a gentleman is not yet mine." 33. The master said, "How dare I lay claim to holiness or love? A man of endless craving, who never tires of teaching, I might be called, but that is all." "That is just what we disciples cannot learn," said Kung Hsi Hua. 34. When the master was very ill, Tsu Lu asked leave to pray. "Is it done?" said the master. Footnote 70. Duke Kao of Lu plus 510 BC was the duke that first employed Confucius. It is against Chinese custom for a man to marry a girl whose surname is the same as his. Footnote 71. A disciple of Confucius. "It is," answered Tsu Lu. "The memorials say, pray to the spirits above and to the earth below." The master said, "Long-lasting has my prayer been." 35. The master said, "Waste makes men unruly, thrift makes them mean, but they are better mean than unruly." 36. The master said, "A gentleman is calm and spacious, the small man is always fretting." 37. The master's manner was warm yet dignified. He was stern but not fierce, humble yet easy. Book 8:1. The master said, "Ti Po." 72. May be said to have carried nobility furthest. Thrice he refused all below heaven. Men were at a loss how to praise him. 2. The master said, "Without good form attentions grow into fussiness, heed becomes fearfulness, daring becomes unruliness, frankness becomes rudeness." When gentlemen are true to kinsfolk, love will thrive among the people. If they do not forsake old friends, the people will not steal. 3. When Tseng-Tsu lay sick, he called his disciples and said, "Uncover my feet, uncover my arms." The poem says, "As if a deep gulf were yawning below, as crossing thin ice, take heed how ye go." My little children, I have known how to keep myself unhurt until now and hereafter. 73. 4. When Tseng-Tsu was sick, Meng Qing, 74, came to ask after him. Footnote 72. Ti Po was the eldest son of the king of Chu. The father wished his third son to succeed him, so that the throne might pass later to his grandson, afterwards known as King Wen. To enable this plan to be carried out, Ti Po and his second brother went into exile. Footnote 73. The Chinese say, "The body is born whole by the mother, it should be returned whole by the son." Footnote 74. Chief of the Meng clan, minister of Lu. Tseng-Tsu said, "When a bird is dying, his notes are sad. When man is dying, his words are good." 3 branches of the way are dear to a gentleman: to banish from his bearing violence and disdain, to sort his face to the truth, and to banish from his speech what is low or unseemly. The ritual of chalice and platter. 75. Has servitors to see to it. 5. Tseng-Tsu said, "When we can, to ask those that cannot. When we are more, to ask those that are less. Having, to seem wanting. Real, to seem shadow. When gainsaid, never answering back. I had a friend." 76. Once that could do thus. 6. Tseng-Tsu said, "A man to whom an orphan a few feet high or the fate of 100 towns may be entrusted, and whom no crisis can corrupt, is he not a gentleman indeed?" 7. Tseng-Tsu said, "The knight had need be strong and bold, for his burden is heavy, the way is far. His burden is love, is it not a heavy one? No halt before death, is that not far?" 8. The master said, "Poetry rouses us, we stand upon courtesy, music is our crown." 9. The master said, "The people may be made to follow, we cannot make them understand." 10. The master said, "Love of daring and hatred of poverty lead to crime. A man without love, if he is sorely harassed, turns to crime." 11. The master said, "All the comely gifts of the Duke of Chu." 77. Coupled with pride and meanness would not be worth a glance. Footnote 75. For sacrifice. Footnote 76. Probably Yen Yuan. Footnote 77. See Book VII Section 5, 12. The master said, "A man to whom 3 years of learning have borne no fruit would be hard to find." 13. The master said, A man of simple faith who loves learning, who guards and betters his way unto death, will not enter a tottering kingdom, nor stay in a lawless land. When all below heaven follows the way, he is seen. When it loses the way, he is unseen. While his land keeps the way, he is ashamed to be poor and lowly. But when his land has lost the way, wealth and honors shame him. 14. The master said, when out of place, discuss not policy. 15. The master said, in the first days of the music master, Chi how the hubbub. 78. Of the Quan Chu rose sea beyond sea, how it filled the ear. 16. The master said, of men that are zealous but not straight, dull but not simple, helpless but not truthful, I will know nothing. 17. The master said, learn as though the time were short, like one that fears to lose. 18. The master said, how wonderful were Shun, too, and you, too, to have all below heaven was nothing to them. 19. The master said, how great a lord was Yao. 79. Wonderful, heaven alone is great, Yao alone was patterned on it. Vast, boundless, men's words failed them. The wonder of the work done by him, the flame of his art and precepts. Footnote 78. The last part of the music when all the instruments were played together. Footnote 79. See Introduction. 20. Shun had 5 ministers, and there was order below heaven. King Wu, 80, said, I have 10 uncommon ministers. Confucius said, the dearth of talent is not that the truth. Wen Yu, 81, followed Tiang, 82. The times were rich in talent, yet there were but 9 men in all and 1 woman. In greatness of soul we may say that Chu, 83, was highest. He had 2/3 of all below heaven and bent it to the service of Yin. 21. The master said, I see no flaw in you. He ate and drank little, yet he was lavish in piety to the ghosts and spirits. His clothes were bad, but in his cap and gown he was fair indeed. His palace buildings were poor, yet he gave his whole strength to dikes and ditches. No kind of flaw can I see in you. Footnote 80, see Introduction. Footnote 81, Shun. Footnote 82, Yao. Footnote 83, King Wen, Duke of Chu. Book 9:1. The master seldom spake of gain or love or the bidding. 2. A man of the village of Taoixiang said, the great Confucius, with his vast learning, has made no name in anything. When the master heard this, he said to his disciples, what shall I take up? Shall I take up driving, or shall I take up shooting? I shall take up driving. 3. The master said, a linen cap is good form, now silk is worn. It is cheap, so I follow the many. To bow below is good form, now it is done above. This is arrogance, so breaking with the many I still bow below. 4. From 4 things the master was quite free, by ends and must and shall and I. 5. When he was afraid in Wang, 84. The master said, since the death of King Wen is not the seat of culture here. If heaven had meant to destroy our culture, a later mortal would have had no part in it. Until heaven condemns our culture, what can the men of Wang do to me? 6. A high minister said to Tzu Kung, the master must be a holy man, he can do so many things. Footnote 84, during the master's wanderings. Wang is said to have been a small state near Lu which had been oppressed by Yang Huo. Confucius resembled him, and the men of Wang set upon him, mistaking him for their enemy. The commentators say that the master was not afraid, only roused to a sense of danger. I cannot find that the text says so. Tzu Kung said, heaven has indeed given him so much that he is almost holy, and he can do many things too. When the master heard this, he said, does the minister know me? Because I was poor when young, I can do many paltry things. But does doing many things make a gentleman? No, not doing many does. Lao said, the master would say, as I had no post I learned the crafts. 7. The master said, "Have I in truth wisdom? I have no wisdom. But when a common fellow emptily asks me anything, I tap it on this side and that and sift it to the bottom." 8. The master said, "The phoenix comes not, the river gives forth no sign. All is over with me." 9. When the master saw folk clad in mourning, or in cap and gown, or a blind man, he always rose even for the young war. If he was passing them, he quickened his step. 10. Yen Yuan heaved a sigh and said, "As I look up it grows higher, deeper as I dig. I catch sight of it ahead, and on a sudden it is behind me. The master leads men on, deftly bit by bit. He widens me with culture, he binds me with courtesy. If I wished to stop, I could not until my strength were spent. What seems the mark stands near, but though I long to reach it, I find no way." 11. When the master was very ill, Tsulu made the disciples act as ministers. During a better spell, the master said, "You has long been feigning. This show of ministers, when I have no ministers, whom will it take in? Will heaven be taken in? And is it not better to die in the arms of my 2-3 boys than to die in the arms of ministers? And if I miss a big burial, shall I die by the roadside?" 12. Tsukung said, "If I had here a fair piece of jade, should I hide it away in a case, or seek a good price and sell it?" Sell it, said the master. "I tarry for my price." 13. The master wished to dwell among the 9 tribes, 85, footnote 85, in the east of Shantung. One said, "They are low, how could ye?" The master said, "Wherever a gentleman lives, will there be anything low?" 14. The master said, "After I came back from Wei to Lu, the music was set straight and each song found its place." 15. The master said, "To serve dukes and ministers abroad and father and brothers at home, in matters of mourning not to dare to be slack, and to be no thrall to wine. To which of these have I one?" 16. As he stood by a stream, the master said, "Hasting away like this day and night without stop." 17. The master said, "I have seen no one that loves mind as he loves looks." 18. The master said, "In making a mound, if I stop when one more basket would finish it, I stop. When flattening ground, if after overturning one basket I go on, I go ahead." 19. The master said, "Never listless when spoken to, such was Hui." 86. 20. Speaking of Yen Yuan, the master said, "The pity of it, I saw him go on, but I never saw him stop." 21. The master said, "Some sprouts do not blossom, some blossoms bear no fruit." 22. The master said, "Awe is due to youth. May not tomorrow be bright as today? To men of 40 or 50 who are still unknown, no awe is due." 23. The master said, "Who would not give ear to a downright word? But to mend is better. Who would not be pleased by a guiding word? But to think it out is better. With such as are pleased but do not think out, or who listen but do not mend, I can do nothing." 24. The master said, "Put faithfulness and truth first. Have no friends unlike thyself. Be not ashamed to mend thy faults." 25. The master said, "3 armies may be robbed of their leader, no wretch can be robbed of his will." 26. The master said, "You, 87, is the man to stand, clad in a worn-out quilted gown, unashamed amid robes of fox and badger. Without hatred or greed, what but good does he do?" But when Tsulu was everlastingly humming these words, the master said, "This is the way towards it, but how much short of goodness itself." Footnote 86. Yen Yuan. Footnote 87. Tsulu. 27. The master said, "Erst the cold days show how fir and cypress are last to fade." 28. The master said, "Wisdom has no doubts. Love does not fret, the bold have no fears." 29. The master said, "With some we can learn together, but we cannot go their way. We can go the same way with others, though our standpoint is not the same. And with some, though our standpoint is the same, our weights and scales are not. 30. The blossoms of the plum tree are dancing in play. My thoughts are with thee in thy home far away. The master said her thoughts were not with him, or how could he be far away? Book 10:1. Among his own country folk, Confucius wore a homely look, like one that has no word to say. In the ancestral temple and at court his speech was full but cautious. 2. At court he talked frankly to men of low rank, winningly to men of high rank. When the king was there, he looked intent and solemn. 3. When the king bade him receive guests, his face seemed to change and his legs to bend. He bowed left and right to those beside him, straightened his robes in front and behind, and swept forward with arms spread like wings. When the guest had left, he brought back word, saying, "The guest is no longer looking." 4. As he went in at the palace gate, he stooped as though it were too low for him. He did not stand in the middle of the gate or step on the threshold. When he passed the throne, his face seemed to change and his legs to bend. He spake with bated breath. As he went up the hall to audience, he lifted his robes, bowed his back, and masked his breathing till it seemed to stop. As he came down, he relaxed his face below the first step and looked pleased. From the foot of the steps he swept forward with arms spread like wings, and when he was back in his seat, he looked intent as before. 5. When he carried the scepter, his back bent as under too heavy a burden. He lifted it no higher than in bowing and no lower than in making a gift. His face changed, as it will with fear, and he dragged his feet as though they were fettered. When he offered his present, his manner was formal, but at the private audience he was cheerful. 6. The gentleman was never decked in violet or mauve. Even at home he would not wear red or purple. In hot weather he wore an unlined linen gown, but always over other clothes. With lambskin he wore black, with fawn white, and with fox skin yellow. At home he wore a long fur gown, with the right sleeve short. His nightgown was always half as long again as his body. In the house he wore thick fur of fox or badger. When he was not in mourning, there was nothing missing from his girdle. Except for sacrificial dress, he was sparing of stuff. He did not wear lamb's fur or a black cap on a morning visit. At the new moon he always put on court dress and went to court. 7. On his days of abstinence he always wore linen clothes of a pale color, and he changed his food and moved from his wonted seat. 8. He did not dislike well-cleaned rice or hash chopped small. He did not eat sour or moldy rice, bad fish, or tainted flesh. He did not eat anything that had a bad color or that smelt bad, or food that was badly cooked or out of season. Food that was badly cut or served with the wrong sauce he did not eat. However much flesh there might be, it could not conquer his taste for rice. To wine alone he set no limit, but he did not drink enough to muddle him. He did not drink bought wine or eat ready-dried market meat. He never went without ginger at a meal. He did not eat much. After a sacrifice at the palace, he did not keep the flesh overnight. He never kept sacrificial flesh more than 3 days. If it had been kept longer, it was not eaten. He did not talk at meals, nor speak when he was in bed. Even at a meal of coarse rice or herb broth or gourds, he made his offering with all reverence. 9. If his mat was not straight, he would not sit down. 10. When the villagers were drinking wine, as those that walked with a staff left, he left too. At the village exorcisms, he put on court dress and stood on the east steps. 11. When sending a man with inquiries to another land, he bowed twice to him and saw him out. When Kayang gave him some drugs, he bowed, accepted them, and said, I have never taken them. I dare not taste them. 12. On coming back from court after his stables had been burnt, the master said, Is anyone hurt? He did not ask about the horses. 13. When the king sent him cooked meat, he put his mat straight and tasted it first. When he sent him raw flesh, he had it cooked and offered it to the spirits. When he sent him a live beast, he kept it alive. When he ate in attendance on the king made the offering, he tasted things first. When he was sick and the king came to see him, he lay with his head to the east, with his court dress over him and his girdle across it. When he was called by the king's bidding, he walked, without waiting for his carriage. 14. On going into the great temple, he asked about everything. 15. When a friend died who had no home to go to, he said, It is for me to bury him. When friends sent him anything, even a carriage and horses, he never bowed unless the gift was sacrificial flesh. 16. He did not sleep like a corpse. At home he unbent. Even if he knew him well, his face changed when he saw a mourner. Even when he was in undress, if he saw anyone in full dress or a blind man, he looked grave. To men in deep mourning and to the census-bearers he bowed over the crossbar. Before choice meats he rose with changed look. At sharp thunder or a fierce wind his look changed. 17. When mounting his carriage he stood straight and grasped the cord. When he was in it he did not look round or speak fast or point. 18. Seeing a man's face she rose, flew round and settled. The master said, Hen pheasant on the ridge, it is the season, it is the season. Tsulu went towards her, she sniffed thrice and rose. 88. Footnote 88. This passage cannot belong here. It is corrupt and unintelligible. Book 11 1. The master said, Savages, the men that first went into courtesy and music, gentlemen, those that went into them later, my use is to follow the first lead in both. 2. The master said, Not one of my followers in CHN or TSI comes any more to my door. Yen Yuan, Min Tsusiachin, Jan Poniu, and Chung Kung were men of noble life. Tsai Wo and Tsu Kung were the talkers. Jan Yu and Kai Lu were statesmen. Tsu Yu and Tsu Hia, men of arts and learning. 3. The master said, I get no help from Hui. 89. No word I say but delights him. 4. The master said, How good a son is Min Tsusiachin. No one finds fault with anything that his father or his mother or his brethren say of him. 5. Nan Yung would thrice repeat the scepter white. 90. Confucius gave him his brother's daughter for wife. 6. Kai Kayang asked which disciples loved learning. Confucius answered there was Yen Hui. 91. Loved learning. Alas, his mission was short, he died. Now there is no one. Footnote 89. Yen Yuan. Footnote 90. The verse runs, A flaw can be ground from a scepter white, a slip of the tongue no man can write. Footnote 91. Yen Yuan. 7. When Yen Yuan died, Yen Lu, 92, asked for the master's carriage to furnish an outer coffin. The master said, Brains or no brains, each of us speaks of his son. When Li, 93, died, he had an inner but not an outer coffin. I would not go on foot to furnish an outer coffin. As I follow in the wake of the ministers, I cannot go on foot. 8. When Yen Yuan died, the master said, Woe is me, heaven has undone me, heaven has undone me. 9. When Yen Yuan died, the master gave way to grief. His followers said, Sir, ye are giving way. The master said, Am I giving way? If I did not give way for this man, for whom should I give way to grief? 10. When Yen Yuan died, the disciples wished to bury him in pomp. The master said, This must not be. The disciples buried him in pomp. The master said, Hui treated me as his father. I have failed to treat him as a son. No, not I, but ye, my 2-3 boys. 11. Kai Lu. 94. Asked what is due to the ghosts of the dead. The master said, when we cannot do our duty to the living, how can we do it to the dead? He dared to ask about death. We know not life, said the master, how can we know death? Footnote 92, the father of Yen Yuan. Footnote 93, the master's son. Footnote 94, Tsulu. 12. Seeing the disciple Min standing at his side with winning looks, Tsu Lu with warlike front, Jan Yu and Tsu Kung frank and free, the master's heart was glad. A man like you, 95, he said, dies before his day. 13. The men of Lu were building the long treasury. Min Tsu Siechin said, would not the old one do? Why must it be rebuilt? The master said, that man does not talk, but when he speaks he hits the mark. 14. The master said, what has the loot of you, 96, to do, twanging at my door? But when the disciples looked down on Tsulu, the master said, you has come up into hall, but he has not yet entered the inner rooms. 15. Tsu Kung asked, which is the better, Shi, 97 or Shang, 98? The master said, she goes too far, Shang not far enough. Then is she the better, said Tsu Kung. Too far, said the master, is no nearer than not far enough. 16. The Kai was richer than the Duke of Chu, yet Chu, 99, became his tax gatherer and made him still richer. Footnote 95, Tsulu. This prophecy came true. Tsulu and Tsukao were officers of Wei when troubles arose. Tsulu hastened to the help of his master. He met Tsukao withdrawing from the danger and was advised to do the same. But Tsulu would not desert the man whose pay he drew. He plunged into the fight and was killed. Footnote 96, Tsulu. Footnote 97, the disciple Tsu Chang. Footnote 98, the disciple Tsu Acha. Footnote 99, the disciple Jan Yu. He is no disciple of mine, said the master. My little children, ye may beat your drums and make war on him. 17. Chi 100 is simple, Shen 101 is dull, Shi 102 is smooth, Yu 103 is coarse. 18. The master said Hui 104 is almost faultless and he is often empty. Tzu 105. Tsu Chang asked, what is the way of a good man? The master said, he does not tread the beaten track, and yet he does not enter the inner rooms. 20. The master said, commend a man for plain speaking. He may prove a gentleman or else but seeming honest. 21. Tsulu said, shall I do all I am taught? The master said, whilst thy father and elder brothers live, how canst thou do all thou art taught? Jan Yu asked, shall I do all I am taught? The master said, do all thou art taught. Kung Hsi Hua said, Yu 106, asked, shall I do all I am taught? And ye said, sir, whilst thy father and elder brothers live. Chu 107. Asked, shall I do all I am taught? And ye said, sir, do all thou art taught. I am in doubt and dare to ask you, sir. Footnote 100, the disciple Cao Chi. Footnote 101, the disciple Tseng Tsu. Footnote 102, the disciple Tsu Chang. Footnote 103, the disciple Tsulu. Footnote 104, the disciple Yen Yuan. Footnote 105, the disciple Tsu Kung. Footnote 106, Tsulu. The master said, Chu is bashful, so I egged him on. Yu is twice a man, so I held him back. 22. When the master was in fear in K Wang, Yen Yuan fell behind. The master said, I held thee for dead. He answered, whilst my master lives, how should I dare to die? 23. Kai Tsu Jan 108 asked whether Chung Yu 2 or Jan Chu 3 could be called a great minister. The master said, I thought ye would ask me a riddle, sir, and ye ask about you. 109 and Chu 110. He that holds to the way in serving his lord and leaves when he cannot do so, we call a great minister. Now you and chu I should call tools, who are just followers then. Nor would they follow, said the master, if told to kill their lord or father. 24. Tsulu made Tsukao governor of Pai. The master said, Thou art undoing a man's son. Tsulu said, What with the people and the spirits of earth and corn must a man read books to become learned? The master said, This is why I hate a glib tongue. 25. The master said to Tsulu Tsang Hsi, 111. Jan Yu and Kung Hsi Hua as they sat beside him, I may be a day older than you, but forget that. Ye are wont to say, I am unknown. Well, if ye were known, what would ye do? Footnote 108, the younger brother of Kai Huan, the head of the Kai clan. Footnote 109, Tsulu. He and Jan Yu had taken office under the Kai. Footnote 110, Jan Yu. Footnote 111, a disciple, the father of Tsengtsu. Tsulu answered lightly. Give me a land of 1,000 chariots, crushed between great neighbors, overrun by soldiers and searched by famine, and within 3 years I could put courage into it and high purpose. The master smiled. What wouldst thou do, Chu? 112. He said. He answered, Give me a land of 60 or 70 or 50 or 60 square miles, and within 3 years I could give the people plenty. As for courtesy and music, they would wait the coming of a gentleman. And what wouldst thou do, Che? 113. He answered, I do not speak of what I can do, but of what I should like to learn. At services in the ancestral temple or at the grand audience I should like to fill a small part. And what wouldst thou do, Tyne? 114. Tyne stopped playing, pushed his still-sounding lute aside, rose and answered, My choice would be unlike those of the other 3. What harm in that, said the master. Each but spake his mind. In the last days of spring, all clad for the springtime, with 5 or 6 young men and 6 or 7 lads, I would bathe in the Yi, be fanned by the wind in the rain god's glade, and go back home singing. The master said with a sigh, I sighed with Tyne. Tsang Hsi stayed after the other 3 had left and said, What did ye think, sir, of what the 3 disciples said? Footnote 112, Jan Yu. Footnote 113, Kung Hsi Hua. Footnote 114, Tsang Hsi. Each but spake his mind, said the master. Why did ye smile at you? 115, sir. Lands are swayed by courtesy, but what he said was not modest. That was why I smiled, yet did not Chu speak of a state. Where would 60 or 70 or 50 or 60 square miles be found that are not a state? And did not Chu speak of a state, who but great vassals are there in the ancestral temple or at the grand audience? But if Chu were to take a small part, who could fill a big one? Footnote 115, Tsulu. Book 12:1. Yen Yuan asked, What is love? The master said, Love is to conquer self and turn to courtesy. If we could conquer self and turn to courtesy for one day, all below heaven would turn to love. Does love flow from within, or does it flow from others? Yen Yuan said, May I ask what are its signs? The master said, To be always courteous of eye and courteous of ear, to be always courteous in word and courteous in deed. Yen Yuan said, Though I am not clever, I hope to live by these words. 2. Chung Kung asked, What is love? The master said, Without the door to behave as though a great guest were come, to treat the people as though we tendered the great sacrifice, not to do unto others what we would not they should do unto us, to breed no wrongs in the state and breed no wrongs in the home. Chung Kung said, Though I am not clever, I hope to live by these words. 3 Ssu Ma Niu. 116. Asked, What is love? The master said, "Love is slow to speak, to be slow to speak. Can that be called love?" The master said, "Can that which is hard to do be lightly spoken?" Footnote 116. A disciple. 4 Ssu Manu asked, "What is a gentleman?" The master said, "A gentleman knows neither sorrow nor fear." No sorrow and no fear. Can that be called a gentleman? The master said. He searches his heart. It is blameless. So why should he sorrow? What should he fear? 5. Ssu Manu cried sadly, "All men have brothers, I alone have none." Tsuatia said, "I have heard that life and death are allotted, that wealth and honors are in heaven's hand. A gentleman is careful and does not trip. He is humble towards others and courteous. All within the 4 seas are brethren. How can a gentleman lament that he has none?" 6. Tsu Chang asked, "What is insight?" The master said, "Not to be moved by lap and wash of slander, or by plaints that pierce to the quick, may be called insight. Yea, whom lap and wash of slander, or plaints that pierce to the quick cannot move may be called far-sighted." 7. Tsu Kung asked, "What is kingcraft?" The master said, "Food enough, troops enough, and the trust of the people." Tsu Kung said, "If it had to be done, which could best be spared of the 3? Troops," said the master. "And if we had to, which could better be spared of the other 2? Food," said the master. "From of old all men die, but without trust a people cannot stand." 8. Kai Tsu Siecheng, 117. Said, "It is the stuff alone that makes a gentleman. What can art do for him?" "Alas, my lord," said Tsu Kung, "how ye speak of a gentleman. No team overtakes the tongue. The art is no less than the stuff is no less than the art. Without the fur, a tiger or a leopard's hide is no better than the hide of a dog or a goat." 9. Duke Ai said to Yu Zhou, 118. "In this year of dearth I have not enough for my wants. What should be done?" "Ye might tithe the people," answered Yu Zhou. "A fifth is not enough," said the Duke. "How could I do with a tenth?" "When all his folk have enough," answered Yu Zhou, "shall the Lord alone not have enough? When none of his folk have enough, shall the Lord alone have enough?" 10. Tsu Chang asked how to raise the mind and scatter delusions. The master said, "Put faithfulness and truth first and follow the right. The mind will be raised. We wish life to what we love and death to what we hate. To wish it both life and death is a delusion. Whether prompted by wealth or not, yet ye made a distinction." Footnote 117. Minister of Wei. Footnote 118. A disciple of Confucius. 11. Qing, 119. Duke of Che asked Confucius, "What is kingcraft?" Confucius answered, "For the lord to be lord and the liege, the father to be father and the son, son." "True indeed," said the Duke. "If the lord were no lord and the liege no liege, the father no father and the son no son, though the grain were there, could I get anything to eat?" 12. The master said, "To stint a quarrel with half a word you." 120. Is the man? Tsulu never slept over a promise. 13. The master said, "At hearing lawsuits I am no better than others. What is needed is to stop lawsuits." 14. Tsu Chang asked, "What is kingcraft?" The master said, "To be tireless of thought and faithful in doing." 15. The master said, "Breadth of reading and the ties of courtesy will keep us, too, from false paths." 16. The master said, "A gentleman shapes the good in man, he does not shape the bad in him. The small man does the contrary." 17. Kai Yang, 121, asked Confucius how to rule. Confucius answered, "To rule is to set straight. If ye give a straight lead, sir, who will dare not go straight?" Footnote 119. Confucius was in Che in 517 B.C. The Duke was overshadowed by his ministers and thought of setting aside his eldest son. Footnote 120. Tsulu. Footnote 121. On the death of Kai Huan, his brother Kai Kayang set aside Kai Huan's small son and made himself head of the clan. 18. Kai Kayang, being troubled by robbers, asked Confucius about it. Confucius answered, "If ye did not wish it, sir, though ye rewarded him, no man would steal." 19. Kai Kayang, speaking of kingcraft to Confucius, said, "To help those that follow the way, should we kill the men that will not?" Confucius answered, "Sir, what need has a ruler to kill? If ye wished for goodness, sir, the people would be good. The gentleman's mind is the wind, and grass are the minds of small men. As the wind blows, so must the grass bend." 20. Tzu Chang asked, "What must a knight be for him to be called eminent?" The master said, "What dost thou mean by eminence?" Tzu Chang answered, "To be famous in the state and famous in his home." "That is fame, not eminence," said the master. The eminent man is plain and straight and loves right. He weighs words and scans looks. He takes pains to come down to men, and he shall be eminent in the state and eminent in his house. The famous man wears a mask of love, but his deeds belie it. Self-confident and free from doubts, fame will be his in the state and fame be his in his home. 21. Whilst walking with the master in the rain god's glade, Fan Che said to him, "May I ask how to raise the mind, amend evil and scatter errors?" "Well asked," said the master. "Rank thy work above success, will not the mind be raised? Fight the bad in thee, not the bad in other men, will not evil be mended? One angry morning to forget both self and kin, is that no error?" 22. Fan Che asked, "What is love?" The master said, "To love men." He asked, "What is wisdom?" The master said, "To know men." Fan Che did not understand. The master said, "Lift up the straight, put by the crooked, and crooked men will grow straight." Fan Che withdrew, and seeing Tzu Che said to him, "The master saw me, and I asked him what wisdom is." He answered, "Lift up the straight, put by the crooked, and crooked men will grow straight." What did he mean? "How rich a saying," said Tzu Che. "When Shun, 122, had all below heaven, he chose Cao Yao from the many, lifted him up, and the men without love fled. When Tiang, 123, had all below heaven, he chose Yin, 124, from the many, lifted him up, and the men without love fled." Footnote 122, an emperor of the Golden Age. Footnote 123, the founder of the Shang or Yin dynasty. Footnote 124, Tiang's chief minister. Yin said, "Whomsoever I serve, is he not my lord? Whomsoever I rule, are they not my people?" He came in when there was order, and came in too when there were tumults. He said, "When heaven begat the people, the man that first understood was sent to waken those slow to understand, and the man that first woke was sent to waken those slow to wake. I am he that woke first among heaven's people. With the help of the way I shall wake the people. For man or wife of all the people below heaven, to have missed the blessings of Yao and Shun was the same, he thought, as if he himself had pushed him into the ditch. The burden he shouldered was the weight of all below heaven." Mencius, Book X, Chapter 1. 23. Tzu Kung asked about friends. The master said, "Talk faithfully to them and guide them well. If this is no good, stop. Do not bring shame upon thee." 24. Tsang Tzu said, "A gentleman gathers friends by culture and stays love with friendship." Book 13, 1. Tsulu asked how to rule. The master said, "Go before, work hard." When asked to say more, he said, "Never flag." 2. When he was steward of the Kai, Chung Kung asked how to rule. The master said, "Let officers act first, overlook small faults, lift up brains and worth." Chung Kung said, "How shall I get to know brains and worth to lift them up?" "Lift up those thou dost know," said the master, and those thou dost not know will other men pass by? 3. Tsulu said, the Lord of Wei, 125, waits for you, sir, to govern. How shall ye begin? Surely, said the master, by putting names right. Indeed, said Tsulu, that is far-fetched, sir. Why put them right? What a savage you, 126, is, said the master. A gentleman is tongue-tied when he does not understand. If names are not right, words do not fit. If words do not fit, affairs go wrong. If affairs go wrong, neither courtesy nor music thrive. If courtesy and music do not thrive, law and justice fail. And if law and justice fail them, the people can move neither hand nor foot. So a gentleman must be ready to put names into speech and words into deed. A gentleman is nowise careless of his words. Footnote 125. See note to Book VII, Section 14. Tsulu was his officer. Footnote 126. Tsulu. 4. Fan Che asked to be taught husbandry. The master said, an old husbandman knows more than I do. He asked to be taught gardening. The master said, an old gardener knows more than I do. After Fan Che had gone, the master said, how small a man. If those above love courtesy, no one will dare to slight them. If they love right, no one will dare to disobey. If they love truth, no one will dare to hide the heart. Then from the four corners of the earth, folk will gather with their children on their backs. And what need will there be for husbandry? 5. The master said, though a man have conned 300 poems, if he stands helpless when put to govern, if he cannot answer for himself when he is sent to the four corners of the earth, many as they are, what have they done for him? 6. The master said, the man of upright life is obeyed before he speaks. Commands even go unheeded when the life is crooked. 7. The master said, the governments of Lu and Wei are brothers. 8. Speaking of Qing of the ducal house of Wei, the master said, he was wise in his private life. When he had begun to save, he said, this seems enough. When he grew better off, he said, this seems plenty. When he had grown rich, he said, this seems splendor. 9. When Jan Yu was driving him to Wei, the master said, what numbers? Jan Yu said, since numbers are here, what next is needed? Wealth, said the master. And what comes next after wealth? Teaching, said the master. 10. The master said, if I were employed for a 12-month, much could be done. In 3 years all would be ended. 11. The master said, if good men were to govern a land for 100 years, cruelty would be conquered and putting to death done away with. How true are these words? 12. The master said, even if a king were to govern, a lifetime would pass before love dawned. 13. The master said, what is governing to a man that can rule himself? If he cannot rule himself, how shall he rule others? 14. As the disciple Jan, 127, came back from court, the master said to him, why so late? I had business of state, he answered. Household business, said the master. If it had been business of state, though I am out of office, I should have heard of it. 15. Duke Ting asked, is there any one saying that can bless a kingdom? Footnote 127, Jan Yu. He was in the service of the Kai, not of the Duke of Lu. Confucius answered, that is more than words can do. But men have a saying, to be lord is hard and to be minister is not easy. And if one knew how hard it is to be lord, might not this one saying almost bless a kingdom? And is there any one saying that can wreck a kingdom? That is more than words can do, Confucius answered. But men have a saying, my only delight in being lord is that no one withstands what I say. Now if what he says is good and no one withstands him, is not that good too? But if it is not good and no one withstands him, might not this one saying almost wreck a kingdom? 16. The Duke of Shi asked, what is kingcraft? The master answered, for those near us to be happy and those far off to come. 17. When he was governor of Chufu, Tsuecha asked how to rule. The master said, "Be not eager for haste, look not for small gains. Nothing done in haste is thorough, and looking for small gains, big things are left undone." 18. The Duke of Shi told Confucius, "Among the upright men of my clan, if the father steals a sheep, his son bears witness." Confucius answered, "Our clan's uprightness is unlike that. The father screens his son and the son screens his father. There is uprightness in this." 19. Fan Che asked, "What is love?" The master said, "To be humble at home, earnest at work, and faithful to all. Even among wild tribes, none of this must be dropped." 20. Tsu Kung asked, "What is it that we call knighthood?" The master said, "To be called a knight, a man must be shamefast in all that he does. If he is sent to the four corners of the earth, he must not disgrace his lord's commands." May I ask who would come next? He that his clansmen call a good son and his neighbors call modest. And who would come next? A man that clings to his word and sticks to his course, a flinty little fellow, would perhaps come next. And how are the crowned servants of today? "What, the weights and measures men," said the master. "Are they worth reckoning?" 21. The master said, "As I cannot get men of the middle way, I have to fall back on zealous and austere men. Zealous men push ahead and take things up, and there are things that austere men will not do." 22. The master said, "The men of the South have a saying, 'Unless he is stable, a man will make neither a wizard nor a leech.' This is true. His instability of mind may disgrace him." The master said, "Neglect of the omens, that is all." 23. The master said, "Gentlemen unite, but are not the same. Small men are all the same, but each for himself." 24. Tsu Kung said, "If the whole countryside loved a man, how would that be?" "It would not do," said the master. "And how would it be if the whole countryside hated him?" "It would not do," said the master. "It would be better if all the good men of the countryside loved him and all the bad men hated him." 25. The master said, "A gentleman is easy to serve and hard to please. If we go from the way to please him, he is not pleased, but his commands are measured to the man. A small man is hard to serve and easy to please. Though we go from the way to please him, he is pleased, but he expects everything of his men." 26. The master said, "A gentleman is high-minded, not proud. The small man is proud, but not high-minded." 27. The master said, "Strength and courage, simplicity and modesty are akin to love." 28. Tsulu asked, "When can a man be called a knight?" The master said, "To be earnest, encouraging, and kind may be called knighthood. Earnest and encouraging with his friends and kind to his brothers." 29. The master said, "If a good man taught the people for 7 years, they would be fit to bear arms too." 30. The master said, "To take untaught men to war is called throwing them away." Book 14:1, H. Scene 128. Asked, "What is shame?" The master said, "To draw pay when the land keeps the way, and to draw pay when it has lost the way is shame." 2. To eschew strife and bragging, spite and greed, would that be love? The master said, "That may be hard to do, but I do not know that it is love." 3. The master said, "A knight that is fond of ease does not amount to a knight." 4. The master said, "Whilst the land keeps the way, be fearless of speech and fearless in deed. When the land has lost the way, be fearless in deed but soft of speech." 5. The master said, "A man of mind can always talk, but talkers are not always men of mind. Love is always bold, though boldness is found without love." 6. Nankung Q said to Confucius, Yi, 129, "Shot well, Ao pushed a boat over land, each died before his time. Yu and Kai toiled at their crops and had all below heaven. The master did not answer. But when Nan Kung Q had gone, he said, "What a gentleman he is, how he honors mind." Footnote 128, the disciple Yuan Ssu. Footnote 129, Yu was killed by his best pupil who said to himself, "In all the world no one but ye shoots better than I do." So he killed him. 7. The master said, "Alas, there have been gentlemen without love, but there has never been a small man that was not wanting in love." 8. The master said, "Can he love thee that never tasks thee? Can he be faithful that never chides?" 9. The master said, "The decrees were drafted by Pi Shen, criticized by Shishu, polished by the foreign minister Tsuyu, and given the final touches by Tsu Chan of Tung Lai." 10. When he was asked what he thought of Tsu Chan, the master said, "A kind-hearted man." Asked what he thought of Tsu Hsi, the master said, "Of him, what I think of him." Asked what he thought of Quan Chung, 130. The master said, "He was the man that drove the Po from the town of Peen with its 300 households to end his days on coarse rice without his muttering a word." Footnote 130. See note to Book III, Section 22. 11. The master said, "Not to grumble at being poor is hard, not to be proud of wealth is easy." 12. The master said, "Meng Kung Cho is more than fit to be steward of Ko or Wei, but he could not be minister of Tiang or Hc." 13. Tsulu asked what would make a full-grown man. The master said, "The wisdom of Tsang Wu Chung, Kung Cho's lack of greed, Chuang of Peen's boldness, and the skill of Jan Chiu, graced by courtesy and music, might make a full-grown man." But now, he said, who asks the like of a full-grown man? He that in sight of gain thinks of right, who when danger looms stakes his life, who, though the bond be old, does not forget what he has been saying all his life, might make a full-grown man. 14. Speaking of Kung Shu Wen, the master said to Kong Ming Chia, "Is it true that thy master does not speak, nor laugh, nor take a gift?" Kung Ming Chia answered, "That is saying too much. My master only speaks when the time comes, so no one tires of his speaking. He only laughs when he is merry, so no one tires of his laughter. He only takes when it is right to take, so no one tires of his taking." "It may be so," said the master, "but is it?" 15. The master said, when he held Fang and asked Lu to appoint an heir, though Tsang Wucheng said he was not forcing his lord, "I do not believe it." 16. The master said, Duke Wen of Qin was deep but dishonest. Duke Huan of Che was honest but shallow. 17. Tsulu said, when Duke Huan slew the young Duke Chiu, and Xiao Hu died with him but Quan Chung did not, was not this one of love? 131. Footnote 131. Chiu and Huan were brothers, sons of the Duke of Che. When their father died, their uncle seized the throne. To preserve the rightful heir, Xiao Hu and Quan Chung fled with Chiu to Lu, whilst Huan escaped to another state. Later on, the usurper was murdered, and Huan returned to Che and secured the throne. He then required the Duke of Lu to kill his brother and deliver up to him Xiao Hu and Quan Chung. This was done, but on the way to Che, Xiao Hu killed himself. Quan Chung, on the other hand, took service under Duke Huan, became his chief minister, and raised the state to greatness. See note to Book III, Section 22. The master said, Duke Huan gathered the great vassals round him, not by chariots of war, but through the might of Quan Chung. What can love do more? What can love do more? 18. Tsu Kung said, when Duke Huan slew the young Duke Chiu, and Quan Chung could not face death and even became his minister, surely he showed want of love. The master said, by Quan Chung helping Duke Huan to put down the great vassals and make all below heaven one, men have fared the better from that day to this. But for Quan Chung our hair would hang down our backs and our coats would button to the left, or should he, like the bumpkin and his lass their troth to keep, have drowned in a ditch, unknown to anyone. 19. The minister H. Seen, who had been steward to Kung Shu Wen, went to audience of the Duke together with Wen. When the master heard of it, he said, "He is rightly called when well-bred." 20. The master spake of Ling Duke of Wei's contempt for the Wei. Kang. 132. Said, "If this be so, how does he escape ruin?" Confucius answered, with Chung-Shu Yu in charge of the guests, the reader Tio in charge of the ancestral temple, and Wang Sun Chia in charge of the troops, how should he come to ruin? 21. The master said, "When words are unblushing, they are hard to make good." Footnote 132, Kai Kang. 22. Cheng murdered Duke Qin. 133. Confucius bathed and went to court and told Duke Ai, saying, Chen Heng has murdered his lord, pray punish him. The Duke said, "Tell the three chiefs." Confucius said, "As I follow in the wake of the ministers, I dared not leave this untold, but the Lord says, tell the three chiefs." He told the three chiefs. It did no good. Confucius said, "As I follow in the wake of the ministers, I dared not leave this untold." 23. Tsulu asked how to serve a lord. The master said, "Never cheat him, stand up to him." 24. The master said, "A gentleman's life leads upwards, the small man's life leads down." 25. The master said, "The men of old learned for their own sake, today men learn for show." 26. Chu Po Yu sent a man to Confucius. As they sat together, Confucius asked him, "What does your master do?" He answered, "My master wishes to make his faults fewer but cannot." When the messenger had left, the master said, a messenger indeed." 27. The master said, "When not in office, discuss not policy." Footnote 133. 481 BC, 2 years before the death of Confucius, who was not at the time in office. Qin was Duke of Chi, a state bordering on Lu. The three chiefs were the heads of the three great clans that were all-powerful in Lu. 28. Tseng Tsu said, "Even in his thoughts, a gentleman does not outstep his place." 29. The master said, "A gentleman is shamefast of speech. His deeds go further." 30. The master said, "In the way of the gentleman there are 3 things that I cannot achieve. Love is never troubled, wisdom has no doubts, courage is without fear." "That is what ye say, sir," said Tsu Kung. 31. Tsu Kung would liken this man to that. The master said, "What talents Tzu has, now I have no time for this." 32. The master said, "Sorrow not at being unknown, sorrow for thine own shortcomings." 33. The master said, "Not to expect to be cheated, nor to look for falsehood, and yet to see them coming shows worth in a man." 34. Wei Shengmu said to Confucius, "How dost thou still find roosts to roost on, Chu, unless by wagging a glib tongue?" Confucius answered, "I dare not wag a glib tongue, but I hate stubbornness." 35. The master said, "A steed is not praised for his strength, but praised for his mettle." 36. One said, "To mete out good for evil, how were that?" "And how would ye meet good?" said the master. "Meet evil with justice, meet good with good." 37. The master said, "Alas, no man knows me." Tsu Kung said, "Why do ye say, sir, that no man knows you?" The master said, "Never murmuring against heaven, nor finding fault with men, learning from the lowest, cleaving the heights. I am known but to one, but to heaven." 38. Liao, the duke's uncle, spake ill of Tsu Lu to Kai Sun. 134. Tsu Fu Qingpo told this to Confucius. saying, "My master's mind is surely being led astray by the duke's uncle, but I have still the strength to expose his body in the marketplace." The master said, "If the way is to be kept, that is the bidding, and if the way is to be lost, this is the bidding. What can the duke's uncle do against the bidding?" 39. The master said, "Men of worth flee the world, the next best flee the land. Then come those that go at a look, then those that go at words." 40. The master said, "7 men did so." 41. Tsulu spent a night at Shimen. The gatekeeper asked him, "Whence comest thou?" "From Confucius," answered Tsulu. "The man that knows it is no good and yet must still be doing," said the gatekeeper. 42. When the master was chiming his sounding stones in way, a basket-bearer said, as he passed the door, "The heart is full that chimes those stones." But then he said, "For shame, what a tinkling sound! If no one knows thee, have done. Wade the deep places, lift thy robe through the shallows." Footnote 134. The head of the Kai clan in whose service Tsulu was. The master said, "Where there's a will, that is nowise hard." 43. Tsu Chang said, "What does the book mean by saying that Kao Tsung?" 135. In his mourning Shed did not speak for 3 years. "Why pick out Kao Tsung?" said the master. "The men of old were all thus. For 3 years after their lord had died, the 100 officers did each his duty and hearkened to the chief minister." 44. The master said, "When those above love courtesy, the people are easy to lead." 45. Tsulu asked, "What makes a gentleman?" The master said, "To be bent on becoming better." "Is that all?" said Tsulu. "By becoming better to bring peace to men." "And is that all?" "By becoming better to bring peace to all men," said the master. Even Yao and Shun were still struggling to become better and so bring peace to all men. 46. Yuan Jang awaited the master squatting. Unruly when young, unmentioned as man, undying when old, spells good for nothing, said the master, and he hit him on the leg with his staff. 47. When a lad from the village of Chui was made messenger, someone asked, saying, "Is it because he is doing well?" The master said, "I have seen him sitting in a man's seat, and seen him walking abreast of his elders. He does not try to do well, he wishes to be quickly grown up." Footnote 135. An emperor of the Yin dynasty. Book 15:1. Ling, Duke of Wei, asked Confucius about the line of battle. Confucius answered, "Of the ritual of dish and platter." 136. "I have heard somewhat, I have not learnt warfare." He left the next day. In Chen, grain ran out. His followers were too ill to rise. Tsulu showed that he was put out. "Has a gentleman to face want too?" he said. "Gentlemen have indeed to face want," said the master. "The small man when he is in want runs to excess." To the master said Tzu 137. "Dost thou not take me for a man that has learnt much and thought it over?" "Yes," he answered, "is it not so?" "No," said the master, "I string all into one." 3. The master said, "You." 138. How few men know great-heartedness. Footnote 136. For sacrifice. Footnote 137. Tsu Kung. Footnote 138. Tsulu probably said to him on the occasion mentioned in section I, for the master said to rule doing nothing was what Shun did. For what is there to do? Self-respect and to set the face to rule is all. 5. Tsu Chang asked how to get on. The master said, "Be faithful and true of word, plain and lowly in thy walk. Thou wilt get on even in tribal lands. If thy words be not faithful and true, thy walk not plain and lowly, wilt thou get on even in thine own town. Standing, see these words ranged before thee. Driving, see them written upon the yoke. Then thou wilt get on." Tsu Chang wrote them on his girdle. 6. The master said, "Straight indeed was the historian Yu. Like an arrow whilst the land kept the way, and like an arrow when it lost the way. What a gentleman was Chu Po Yu. Whilst the land kept the way he took office, and when the land had lost the way he rolled himself up in thought. 7. The master said, not to speak to him that has ears to hear is to spill the man. To speak to a man without ears to hear is to spill thy words. Wisdom spills neither man nor words. 8. The master said, a high will or a loving heart will not seek life at cost of love. To fulfill love they will kill the body. 9. Tsu Kung asked how to attain to love. The master said, a workman bent on good work must first sharpen his tools. In the land that is thy home, serve those that are worthy among the great and make friends with loving knights. 10. Yen Yuan asked how to rule a kingdom. The master said, follow the Aisha seasons, drive in the chariot of Yin, wear the head-dress of Chu, take for music the Shao and its dance. Banish the strains of Cheng and flee men that are glib, for the strains of Cheng are wanton and glib speakers are dangerous. 11. The master said, without thought for far-off things there shall be trouble near at hand. 12. The master said, all is ended. I have seen no one that loves mind as he loves looks. 13. The master said, did not sang when filch his post. He knew the worth of Liu Hia Hui. 139. And did not stand by him. 14. The master said, by asking much of self and little of other men, ill feeling is banished. 15. The master said, unless a man say, would this do? Would that do? I can do nothing for him. 16. The master said, when all day long there is no talk of right and little whiles find favor, the company is in hard case. 17. The master said, right is the stuff of which a gentleman is made. Done with courtesy, spoken with humility, rounded with truth, right makes a gentleman. 18. The master said, his shortcomings trouble a gentleman. To be unknown does not trouble him. 19. The master said, a gentleman fears that his name shall be no more heard when life is done. Footnote 139. Another of these seigneurs do tempts jaddies that is more to us than a dim shadow, for he still lives in the pages of Mencius, who tells us that he was not ashamed of a foul lord and did not refuse a small post. On coming in he did not hide his worth, but held his own way. Neglected and idle, he did not grumble. Straitened and poor, he did not mope. When brought together with country folk, he was quite at his ease and could not bear to leave them. Thou art thou, he said, and I am I. Standing beside me with thy coat off or thy body naked, how canst thou defile me? Book X, Chapter 1. He stopped if a hand was raised to stop him, for he did not care whether he went or no. Book III, Chapter 9. 20. The master said, a gentleman asks of himself, the small man asks of others. 21. The master said, a gentleman is firm, not quarrelsome, a friend, not a partisan. 22. The master said, a gentleman does not raise a man for his words, nor spurn the speech for the man. 23. Tsu Kung said, is there one word by which we may walk till life ends? The master said, fellow feeling, perhaps. Do not do unto others what thou wouldst not have done to thee. 24. The master said, of the men that I meet, whom do I cry down, whom do I overpraise? Or, if I overpraise them, it is after testing them. It was owing to this people that the 3 lines of kings went the straight way. 25. The master said, I have still known historians that would leave a gap in their text, and men that would lend a horse to another to ride. Now it is so no more. 26. The master said, cunning words confound the mind, petty impatience confounds great projects. 27. The master said, the hatred of the many must be looked into, the love of the many must be looked into. 28. The master said, the man can exalt the way. It is not the way that exalts the man. 29. The master said, the fault is to cleave to a fault. 30. The master said, I have spent whole days without food and whole nights without sleep thinking and gained nothing by it. Learning is better. 31. The master said, a gentleman thinks of the way, he does not think of food. Sow and famine may follow, learn and pay may come, but a gentleman grieves for the way, to be poor does not grieve him. 32. The master said, what wisdom has got will be lost again unless love hold it fast. Wisdom to get and love to hold fast without dignity of bearing will not be honored among men. Wisdom to get, love to hold fast and dignity of bearing without courteous ways are not enough. 33. The master said, a gentleman has no small knowledge, but he can carry out big things. The small man can carry out nothing big, but he may be knowing in small things. 34. The master said, love is more to the people than fire and water. I have seen men come to their death by fire and water. I have seen no man that love brought to his death. 35. The master said, when love is at stake, yield not to an army. 36. The master said, a gentleman is consistent, not changeless. 37. The master said, a servant of the king honors his work and puts food after it. 38. The master said, learning knows no rank. 39. The master said, mingle not in projects with a man whose way is not thine. 40. The master said, the whole end of speech is to be understood. 41. When he saw the music master the master said, as they came to the steps, here are the steps. On coming to the mat, he said, here is the mat. When all were seated, the master told him, he and he are here. After the music master had gone, Tsu Chang said, is this the way to speak to a music master? The master said, surely it is the way to help a music master. 140. Footnote 140. The man being blind, as so many musicians are in the East. Book 16:1. The Kai was about to make war on Chuan Yu. 141. When Confucius saw Jan Yu and Kai Lu. 142. They said to him, the Kai is going to deal with Chuan Yu. Confucius said, after all, Chu. 143. Art thou not in the wrong? The kings of old made Chuan Yu lord of Tung Meng. 144. Moreover, as Chuan Yu is inside our borders, it is the liege of the spirits of earth and corn of our land, so how can ye make war upon it? Jan Yu said, our master wishes it. Tsu Lu and I, his 2 ministers, do not either of us wish it. Confucius said, Chu. Chu Zhen used to say, he that can put forth his strength takes his place in the line. He that cannot stands back. Who would take to help him a man that is no stay in danger and no support in falling? Moreover, what thou sayest is wrong. If a tiger or a buffalo escapes from his pen, if tortoiseshell or jade is broken in its case, who is to blame? Jan Yu said, but Chuan Yu is now strong and it is near to Pai. 145. If it is not taken now, in days to come it will bring sorrow on our sons and grandsons. Footnote 141. A small feudatory state of Lu. Footnote 142. Tsu Lu. He and Jan Yu were in the service of the Kai. Footnote 143. Jan Yu. Footnote 144. A mountain in Chuan Yu. Since the emperor had given the ruler of Chuan Yu the right to sacrifice to its mountains, that state had some measure of independence, though it was feudatory to Lu and within its borders. Footnote 145. A town belonging to the Kai. Chu, said Confucius, instead of saying, I want it, a gentleman hates to plead that he needs must. I have heard that fewness of men does not vex a king or a chief, but unlikeness of lot vexes him. Poverty does not vex him, but want of peace vexes him. For if wealth were even, no one would be poor. In harmony is number, peace prevents a fall. Thus, if far-off tribes will not submit, bring them in by encouraging mind and art, and when they come in, give them peace. But now, when far-off tribes will not submit, ye too, helpers of your Lord, cannot bring them in. The kingdom is split and falling, and ye cannot save it. Yet inside our land ye plot to move spear and shield. The sorrows of Kai's grandsons will not rise in Chuanyu, I fear. They will rise within the palace wall. To Confucius said, when the way is kept below heaven, courtesy, music, and punitive wars flow from the Son of Heaven. When the way is lost below heaven, courtesy, music, and punitive wars flow from the great vassals. When they flow from the great vassals, they will rarely last for 10 generations. When they flow from the great ministers, they will rarely last for 5 generations. When underlings sway the country's fate, they will rarely last for 3 generations. When the way is kept below heaven, power does not lie with the great ministers. When the way is kept below heaven, common folk do not argue. 3. Confucius said, for 5 generations its income has passed from the ducal house. 146. For 4 generations power has lain with the great ministers, and humbled therefore are the sons and grandsons of the 3 Huan. Footnote 146 of Lu. For Confucius said, there are 3 friends that help us, and 3 that do us harm. The friends that help us are a straight friend, an outspoken friend, and a friend that has heard much. The friends that harm us are plausible friends, friends that like to flatter, and friends with a glib tongue. 5. Confucius said, there are 3 delights that do good, and 3 that do us harm. Those that do good are delight in dissecting good form and music, delight in speaking of the good in men, and delight in having many worthy friends. Those that do harm are proud delights, delight in idle roving, and delight in the joys of the feast. 6. Confucius said, men that wait upon lords fall into 3 mistakes. To speak before the time has come is rashness. Not to speak when the time has come is secrecy. To speak heedless of looks is blindness. 7. Confucius said, a gentleman has 3 things to guard against. In the days of thy youth, ere thy strength is steady, beware of lust. When manhood is reached in the fullness of strength, beware of strife. In old age, when thy strength is broken, beware of greed. 8. Confucius said, a gentleman holds 3 things in awe. He is in awe of the bidding of heaven, he is in awe of great men, and he is awed by the words of the holy. The small man knows not the bidding of heaven and holds it not in awe. He is saucy towards the great, he makes game of holy men's words. 9. Confucius said, the best men are born wise. Next come those that grow wise by learning, then those that learn from toil. Those that do not learn from toil are the lowest of the people. 10. Confucius said, a gentleman has 9 aims. To see clearly, to understand what he hears, to be warm in manner, dignified in bearing, faithful of speech, keen at work, to ask when in doubt, in anger to think of difficulties, and in sight of gain to think of right. 11. Confucius said, in sight of good to be filled with longing, to look on evil as scalding to the touch. I have seen such men, I have heard such words. To live apart and search thy will, to achieve thy way by doing right. I have heard these words, but I have seen no such men. 12. Qing, Duke of Che, had 1,000 teams of horses, but the people on his death day found no good in him to praise. Poye, 147, and Shu Che, 148. Starved at the foot of Shuyang, and to this day the people still praise them. Is not this the clue to that? Footnote 147. See Note to Book V, Section 22. Footnote 148. See Note to Book V, Section 22. 13. Chen Kang 149. Asked Po Yu 150. Apart from us, have ye heard anything, sir? He answered, no. Once as my father stood alone and I sped across the hall, he said to me, art thou learning poetry? I answered, no. He that does not learn poetry, he said, has no hold on words. Another day, when he again stood alone and I sped across the hall, he said to me, art thou learning courtesy? I answered, no. He that does not learn courtesy, he said, has no foothold. I withdrew and learned courtesy. These two things I have heard. Chen Kang withdrew and cried gladly, I asked one thing and I get three. I hear of poetry, I hear of courtesy, and I hear too that a gentleman stands aloof from his son. 14. A king speaks of his wife as my wife. She calls herself handmaid. Her subjects speak of her as our Lord's wife, but when they speak to foreigners, they say, our little queen. Foreigners speak of her, too, as the Lord's wife. Footnote 149. The disciple Tzu Chen. Footnote 150. The son of Confucius. Book 17:1. Yang Huo, 151, wished to see Confucius. Confucius did not go to see him. He sent Confucius a sucking pig. Confucius chose a time when he was out and went to thank him. They met on the road. He said to Confucius, come, let us speak together. To cherish a gem and undo the kingdom, can that be called love? It cannot, said Confucius. To love office and miss the hour again and again, can that be called wisdom? It cannot, said Confucius. The days and months go by, the years do not wait for us. True, said Confucius, I must take office. To the master said, men are near to each other by nature, the lives they lead sunder them. 3. The master said, only the wisest and stupidest of men never change. 4. As the master came to Wu Xiecheng, 152, he heard sounds of lute and song. Why use an ox knife to kill a fowl? Said the master with a pleased smile. Tzu Yu answered, Master, once I heard you say, a gentleman that has learnt the way loves men. Small folk that have learnt the way are easy to rule. Footnote 151. The all-powerful, unscrupulous minister of the Kai. Footnote 152. A very small town of which the disciple Tzu Yu was governor. My 2-3 boys, said the master, what Yen, 153, says is true, I spake before in play. 5 Kongshan Fujiao, 154, held Pai in rebellion. He called the master who wished to go. Tzu Lu said in displeasure, this cannot be, why must he go to Kongshan? The master said, he calls me, and would that be all? Could I not make an Eastern Chu? 155. Of him that uses me. 6. Tzu Chang asked Confucius, what is love? Confucius said, love is to mete out 5 things to all below heaven. May I ask what they are? Modesty and bounty, said Confucius, truth, earnestness, and kindness. Modesty escapes insult. Bounty wins the many, truth gains men's trust, earnestness brings success, and kindness is enough to make men work. 7 Pai Hsi called the master who wished to go. Tzu Lu said, Master, I heard you say once, to men whose own life is evil, no gentleman will go. Pai Hsi holds Chengmu in rebellion. How could ye go to him, sir? Yes, I said so, answered the master. But is not a thing called hard that cannot be ground thin? White, if steeping, will not turn it black. And am I a gourd? Can I hang without eating? Footnote 153. Tzu Yu. Footnote 154. Steward of the Kai and a confederate of Yang Huo. Footnote 155. A kingdom in the east to match Chu in the west, the home of kings Wen and Wu. 8. The master said, hast thou heard the 6 words, Yu? 156. And the six they sink into, he answered, No, sit down and I shall tell thee. The thirst for love without love of learning sinks into simpleness. Love of knowledge without love of learning sinks into vanity. Love of truth without love of learning sinks into cruelty. Love of straightness without love of learning sinks into rudeness. Love of daring without love of learning sinks into turbulence. Love of strength without love of learning sinks into oddity. 9. The master said, My little children, why do you not learn poetry? Poetry would ripen you, teach you insight, friendliness, and forbearance, show you how to serve your father at home, and teach your Lord abroad, and it would teach you the names of many birds and beasts, plants and trees. 10. The master said to Po-yu, 157. Hast thou done the Chunan and Shaonan? 158. He that has not done the Chunan and Shaonan is like a man standing with his face to the wall. 11. The master said, Courtesy, courtesy is the cry, but are jade and silk the whole of courtesy? Music, music is the cry, but are bells and drums the whole of music? 12. The master said, Fierce looks and weakness within are like the small man, like the thief that breaks through or clambers over a wall. Footnote 156, Tsulu. Footnote 157, his son. Footnote 158, the first two books of the Book of Poetry. 13. The master said, The plain townsman is the bane of mind. 14. The master said, To tell unto the dust all that we hear upon the way is to lay waste the mind. 15. The master said, How can we serve the king with a low fellow who is itching to get what he wants and trembling to lose what he has? This trembling to lose what he has may lead him anywhere. 16. The master said, Men of old had three failings which have, perhaps, died out today. Ambitious men of old were not nice. Now they are unprincipled. Stern men of old were hard. Now they are quarrelsome. Ignorant men of old were straight. Now they are false. That is all. 17. The master said, Smooth words and fawning looks are seldom found with love. 18. The master said, I hate the ousting of scarlet by purple. I hate the strains of Cheng, confounders of sweet music. I hate a sharp tongue, the ruin of kingdom and home. 19. The master said, I wish no word were spoken. Tsukung said, Sir, if ye said no word, what could your little children write? The master said, What are the words of heaven? The 4 seasons pass, the 100 things bear life. What are the words of heaven? 20. Ju Pei wished to see Confucius. Confucius pleaded sickness, but as the messenger left his door, he took a lute and sang so the messenger should hear. 21. Tsai Wo, 159, asked about mourning for 3 years. He thought that one was enough. If for 3 years gentlemen forsake courtesy, courtesy must suffer. If for 3 years they forsake music, music must decay. The old grain passes, the new grain sprouts, the round of woods for the fire drill is ended in 1 year. The master said, Feeding on rice, clad in brocade, couldst thou be at rest? I could, he answered. Then do what gives thee rest. But a gentleman, when he is mourning, has no taste for sweets and no ear for music. He cannot rest in his home, so he gives these up. Now they give thee rest, then keep them. After Tsai Wo had gone, the master said, Use 160, one of love. At the age of 3, a child first leaves the arms of his father and mother, and mourning lasts for 3 years everywhere below heaven. But did you have for 3 years the love of his father and mother? 22. The master said, It is hard indeed when a man eats his fill all day and has nothing to task the mind. Could he not play at checkers? Even that were better. 23. Tsulu said, Do gentlemen honor daring? They put right higher, said the master. With daring and no sense of right, gentlemen turn rebels and small men turn robbers. 24. Tsukung said, "Do gentlemen hate too?" Footnote 159. A disciple. Footnote 160. Tsai Wo. "They do," said the master. "They hate the sounding of evil deeds. They hate men of low estate that slander those over them. They hate daring without courtesy. They hate men that are stout and fearless but blind." And Tzu 161. He said, "Dost thou hate too? I hate those that take spying for wisdom, who take want of manners for courage, and take tale-telling for honesty." 25. The master said, "Only maids and serving lads are hard to train. If we draw near to them, they get unruly. If we hold them off, they grow spiteful." 26. The master said, "When a man of 40 is hated, he will be so to the end." Footnote 161. Tsu Kung. Book 18:1. The Lord of Wei. 162. Left the Lord of Kai. 163. Was made a slave. Paikan. 164. Spake out and died. Confucius said, 3 of the yin had love. 2 whilst Liu Hui. 165. Was chief knight. 166. He was dismissed thrice. Men said, "Is it not yet time to leave, sir?" He answered, "If I serve men the straight way, where can I go without being dismissed thrice? If I am to serve men the crooked way, why should I leave the land of my father and mother?" 3. Speaking of how to treat Confucius, Qing, Duke of Che, said, "I cannot treat him as I do the Kai. I put him between Kai and Meng. I am old," he said, "I cannot use him." Confucius left. For the men of Che. 167. Sent a gift of music girls. Kai Huan accepted them, and for 3 days no court was held. Confucius left. Footnote 162. Kinsmen of the tyrant Chu Sin, who brought the house of Yin to an end. Footnote 163. Kinsmen of the tyrant Chu Sin, who brought the house of Yin to an end. Footnote 164. Kinsmen of the tyrant Chu Sin, who brought the house of Yin to an end. Footnote 165. See note to Book XV, Section 13. Footnote 166, or criminal judge. Footnote 167. To Lu, 497 BC, the turning point in Confucius's career. He left office and his native land and wandered abroad for 12 long years. 5 Chiyu, the mad head of Chu, as he passed Confucius, sang, "Phoenix, bright phoenix, thy glory is ended. Think of tomorrow, the past can't be mended. Up and away. The court is today with danger attended." Confucius alighted, for he wished to speak with him, but he hurried away and he could not speak with him. 6 Changchu and Chinai were working in the fields. As Confucius passed them, he sent Sulu to ask for the ford. Changchu said, "Who is that holding the reins?" "He is Keung Chiu," said Sulu. "Is he Keung Chiu of Lu?" "Yes," said Sulu. "He knows the ford," said Changchu. Sulu asked Chinai, "Who are ye, sir?" He answered, "I am Chung Yu, the disciple of Keung Chiu of Lu." "Yes," he answered. "All below heaven is seething and boiling," said Chinai. "Who can change it? How much better would it be to follow a knight that flees the world than to follow a knight that flees persons?" And he went on hoeing without stop. Tsulu went and told the master, whose face fell. "Can I herd with birds and beasts?" he said. "Whom but these men can I take as fellows? And if the way were kept by all below heaven, I should not need to change them." 7 Tsulu, who was following behind, met an old man carrying a basket on his staff. Tsulu asked him, "Have ye seen the master, sir?" The old man answered, "Thy 4 limbs are idle, thou canst not sort the 5 seeds. Who is thy master?" And he planted his staff and weeded. Tsulu stood and bowed. He kept Sulu for the night, killed a fowl, made millet, gave them him to eat, and presented his 2 sons. Sulu left the next day and told the master. The master said, "He is in hiding." He sent Sulu back to see him, but when he arrived he had gone. Sulu said, "Not to take office is not right. If the ties of old and young cannot be thrown off, how can he throw off the liege's duty to his lord? He wishes to keep his life clean, but he is unsettling the bonds between men. To discharge that duty a gentleman takes office, though he knows beforehand that the way will not be kept 8. Po Yishu Siachi, Yu Chung, Yi Chu Chang, Liu H. Hui, and Shaolian were men that hid from the world. The master said, Po Ye, 168, and Shu Siachi, 169, did not bend the will or shame the body. Footnote 168, see note to Book V, Section 22. Footnote 169, see note to Book V, Section 22. We must say that Liu H. Hui, 170. Their words hit man's duty, their deeds hit our hopes. This we can say and no more. We may say that Yu Chung and Yi lived hidden but were free of speech. Their lives were clean, their retreat was well weighed. But I am unlike all of them. There is nothing I must or must not do. 9. Qi, the great music master, went to see Aichi. Kan, the conductor at the second meal, went to see Aichu. Liao, the conductor at the third meal, went to Tsi. Chuoi, the conductor at the fourth meal, went to see Achin. The drum master Fangshu crossed the river, the tambourine master Wu crossed the Han. Yang, the second bandmaster, and H. Xiang, who played the sounding stones, crossed the sea. 10. The Duke of Chu. 171. Said to the Duke of Lu, 172. A gentleman does not forsake kinsmen, nor offend his great lieges by not using them. He will not cast off an old friend unless he have big cause. He does not ask everything of anyone. 11. Chu had 8 knights, Po Ta and Po Q, Chung Tu and Chung Hu, Shu Ye and Shu H, Kai Sui and Kai Kua. Footnote 170. See note to Book XV, Section 13. Footnote 171. See note to Book VII, Section 5. Footnote 172. His son. Book 19:1. Tzu Chang said, "The knight that stakes his life when he sees danger, who in sight of gain thinks of right, and whose thoughts are reverent at worship, and sad when he is in mourning, will do." 2. Tzu H. said, "Goodness clutched too narrowly. A belief in the way which is not honest, can they be said to be or said not to be?" 3. The disciples of Tzu H. asked Tzu Chang whom we should choose as our companions. Tzu Chang said, "What does Tzu H. say?" They answered, "Tzu H. says, if the men be well for thee, go with them. If they be not well, push them off." Tzu Chang said, "This is not the same as what I had heard. A gentleman honors worth and bears with the many. He applauds goodness and pities weakness. If I were a man of great worth, what could I not bear within others? If I am without worth, men will push me off. Why should I push other men off?" 4. Tzu H. said, "Though there must be things worth seeing along small ways, a gentleman does not follow them, for fear of being left at last in the mire." 5. Tzu H. said, "He that each day remembers his failings and each month forgets nothing, one may be said to love learning indeed." 6. Tzu H. said, "By wide learning and singleness of will, by keen questions and home thinking we reach love." 7. Tzu H. said, "To master the 100 trades, apprentices work in a shop. By learning, a gentleman finds his way." 8. Tzu H. said, "The small man must always gloss his faults." 9. Tzu H. said, "A gentleman changes thrice. Looking up to him he seems stern, as we draw near he warms, but his speech when we hear it is sharp." 10. Tzu H. said, "Until they trust him, a gentleman lays no burdens on his people. If they do not trust him, they will think it cruel. Until they trust him, he does not chide them. Unless they trust him, it will seem fault-finding. 11. Tzu said, if we keep within the bounds of honor, we can step to and fro through propriety. 12. Tzu said, the disciples, the little sons of Tzu, can sprinkle and sweep, attend and answer, come in and go out, but what can come of twigs without roots? When Tzu heard this, he said, Yen Yu, 173, is wrong. If we teach one thing in the way of a gentleman first, shall we tire before reaching the next? Thus plants and trees differ in size. Should the way of a gentleman bewilder him? To learn it, first and last, none but the holy are fit. Footnote 173 Tzu. 13. Tzu said, a servant of the crown should give his spare strength to learning. With his spare strength a scholar should serve the crown. 14. Tzu said, mourning should stretch to grief and stop there. 15. Tzu said, our friend Chang, 174, can do hard things, but love is not yet his. 16. Tzu said, Chang is so spacious, so lordly, that at his side it is hard to do what love bids. 17. Tzu said, I have heard the master say, man never shows what is in him unless it be in mourning those dear to him. 18. Tzu said, I have heard the master say, in all else we may be as good a son as Meng Chuang, but in not changing his father's ministers or his father's rule, he is hard to match. 19. The Meng, 175, made Yang Fu, 176, chief knight, 177, who spake to Tzu about it. Tzu said, those above have lost their way, the people have long been astray. When thou dost get at the truth, be moved to pity, not puffed with joy. 20. Tzu said, Chu, 178, was not so very wicked. Thus a gentleman hates to live in a hollow, down into which runs all that is foul below heaven. 21. Tzu said, a gentleman's faults are like the eating of sun or moon. 179. All men see them, and when he mends, all men look up to him. Footnote 174, Tzu Chang. Footnote 175, the chief of the Meng clan, powerful in Lu. Footnote 176, a disciple of Tzu. Footnote 177, or criminal judge. Footnote 178, the tyrant that ended the Yin dynasty. Footnote 179, an eclipse. 22. Kong Sun Xie Chao of Wei asked Tzu from whom did Cheng Nai, 180, learn? Tzu said, the way of Wen and Wu. It lives in men, the big in big men, the small in small men. In none of them is the way of Wen and Wu missing. How should the master not learn it? What need had he for a set teacher? 23. In talk with the great men of the court, Shu Sun Wu Shu, 182, said, Tzu is worthier than Cheng Nai. Tzu Fu Qingpo told this to Tzu Tzu said, this is like the palace wall. My wall reaches to the shoulder, peeping over you see the good home within. The master's wall is several fathoms high. No one can see the beauty of the ancestral temple and the wealth of its 100 officers unless he gets in by the gate. And if only a few men find the gate, may not my lord have spoken the truth? 24. Shu Sun Wu Shu cried down Cheng Nai. Tzu said, it is labor lost. Cheng Nai cannot be cried down. The greatness of other men is a hummock over which we can still leap. Cheng Nai is the sun or moon which no one can overleap. Though the man were willing to kill himself, how could he hurt the sun or moon? That he does not know his own measure would only be seen the better. 25. Chen Tzu Chen, 183, said to Tzu ye humble yourself, sir. In what is Cheng Nai your better? Footnote 180, Confucius. Footnote 181, see Introduction. Footnote 182, head of the Meng clan. Footnote 183, a disciple of Tzu Kung. Tzu Kung said, "By one word a gentleman shows wisdom, by one word want of wisdom. Words must not be lightly spoken. No one can come up to the master, as heaven is not to be climbed by steps." If the master had power in a kingdom or a clan, the saying would come true. What he sets up stands. He shows the way and men go it. He brings peace and they come. He stirs them and they are at one. Honored in life, he is mourned when dead. Who can come up to him? Book 21. Yao said, "Hail to thee, Shun. The count that heaven is telling falls on thee. Keep true hold of the center. If there be stress or want within the four seas, the gift of heaven will pass forever." Shun laid the same commands on you. Tiang said, "I, thy little child Li, dare to offer this black steer, and dare to proclaim before thee, Almighty Lord, that I dare not forgive sin, nor keep down thy ministers. Search them, O Lord, in thine heart. If our life be sinful, visit it not upon the 10,000 homesteads. If the 10,000 homesteads sin, the sin is on our head. Chu bestowed great gifts, and good men grew rich. Loving hearts are better than near kinsmen. All the people blame no one but me." 185. He saw to weights and measures, revised the laws, and brought back broken officers. Order reigned everywhere. He revived ruined kingdoms and restored fiefs that had fallen in. All hearts below heaven turned to him. The people's food, burials, and worship weighed most with him. His bounty gained the many, his truth won the people's trust, his earnestness brought success, his justice made men glad. Footnote 184. This chapter shows the principles on which China was governed in old times. Yao and Shun were the legendary founders of the Chinese Empire. Yu, Tiang, and Chu were the first emperors of the houses of Asia, Shang and Chu, which had ruled China up till the time of Confucius. Footnote 185, said by King Wu Chu. The people blamed him for not dethroning at once the tyrant Chu Sin. 2. Tzu Chang asked Confucius, how should men be governed? The master said, to govern men we must honor 5 fair things and spurn 4 evil things. Tzu Chang said, what are the 5 fair things? The master said, a gentleman is kind but not wasteful, he burdens but he does not embitter, he is covetous but not greedy, high-minded but not proud, stern but not fierce. Tzu Chang said, what is meant by kindness without waste? The master said, to further what furthers the people is not that kindness without waste. If burdens be sorted to strength, who will grumble? To covet love and get love, is that greed? Few or many, small or great, all is one to a gentleman. He dares not slight any man. Is not this to be high-minded but not proud? A gentleman straightens his robe and cap and settles his look. He is severe, and men look up to him with awe. Is not this to be stern but not fierce? Tzu Chang said, what are the 4 evil things? The master said, to leave untaught and then kill is cruelty. Not to give warning and to expect things to be done is tyranny. To give careless orders and be strict when the day comes is robbery. To be stingy in rewarding men is littleness. 3. The master said, he that does not know the bidding cannot be a gentleman. Not to know good form is to have no foothold. Not to know words is to know nothing of men.